The sky poison pearl glows emerald in Ling's palm, but she hasn't spoken a word since appearing beside Qianye. When even the most loyal companion falls silent, you know the storm has already broken. Subscribe to witness what comes after trust shatters. Ling appeared beside Qianye and stared at the realm beneath her feet blankly. This was the first time she hadn't spoken to him since making an appearance. She clasped her hands in front of her chest as a dot of blue light emerged from the center of her palm. It was the sky poison pearl. Unlike 20 years ago when Qianye first awoke in floating Cloud City, there was a brilliant emerald glow in the sky poison pearl, a glow that might terrify any ancient god of the past had they still existed today. Ling's long emerald hair started floating, and the sky poison pearl glowed brighter and brighter. Her eyes were also starting to glow the same color as the sky poison pearl as well. Her usual delicateness disappeared completely in that moment. It was instead replaced by a soundless, intimidating pressure. The pressure came from the origin of the sky poison pearl. It was a divine aura that exceeded all that existed in the primal chaos right now. Like an ancient goddess who descended upon the earth to lay judgment upon the sinful, she evoked a kind of uncontrollable fear and iciness that would paralyze any living being except Qianye. When the sky poison pearl's light reached its peak, Ling finally released her palms and set free the shapeless, odorless, and colorless sky poison. The name of this poison was Heaven-Wounding Thought-Severing. Back then, the Heaven-Wounding Thought-Severing poison was a name that frightened even the ancient gods and devils. Although it was far weaker compared to myriad tribulations, it was still deadly enough to kill a god. Since the death of the original sky poison pearl poison spirit, the only poison Qianye had been able to cultivate was the lowest of low, a mortal poison. And that was after he found its poison origin on the Azure Cloud continent. After Ling sacrificed herself and became reborn as the perfect poison spirit, the sky poison pearl finally started regenerating its origin poison, Heaven-Wounding Thought-Severing once more. This was especially true after he began dual cultivating with Ling. Although it didn't help his laws of nothingness at all, it did improve Ling's poison recovery speed by leaps and bounds. In this sense, he could call himself Ling's incubator. Although this was still nothing compared to when the primal chaos was still at its peak, it was still the profound heavenly treasure which had a poison that could kill a god. Even if the poison was 100 times less toxic than it used to be, even if it was so minuscule that it was almost invisible, it still transcended common sense and the limits of endurance of any living being in the current world. The Brahma monarch capital's barrier failed to impede Heaven-Wounding Thought-Severing in the slightest. It landed right at the center of the capital before spreading outward. The Heaven-Wounding Thought-Severing poison was shapeless, colorless, odorless, and even auraless in a sense. It was the highest form of poison since the era of gods, and not even a god-emperor could detect its invasion. The pinnacle of the profound way in the eastern divine region, the Brahma monarch capital looked as peaceful as ever. Not a single person had noticed the spreading poison. Gradually, the entire capital was trapped inside its deadly embrace. Qianye only watched silently as Ling continued her work. He hadn't forgotten the pain and despair that nearly overwhelmed her when she heard of the death of her brother and her people. It was a pain he had gone through himself. That was why she had to be the one to do this. He would never forget the look in her eyes when she turned herself into the sky poison spirit for revenge either. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows a little. The light of the sky poison pearl had become much dimmer, but Ling's eyes were as cool as ever. Her complexion turned paler and paler, and her hands began to shake a little. But not only did she not show any signs of stopping at all, the poison continued to spread toward the rest of the realm after covering the whole capital. Ling, Qianye asked, "You can stop now, it is done." But Ling still didn't stop. Doing everything in her power to maintain the divine light in her eyes, she whispered very, very softly, "I wonder if the people who killed father and mother are beyond the capital." Shaken, Qianye quickly grabbed Ling's trembling hands and said urgently, "You can think about that later, now stop. You're exhausting your poison energy and your spirit energy." For years ago, Qianye asked an enslaved Qianye Ying'er, who was the one who had hunted down the wood spirit royal family. Qianye Ying'er's answer to him was, "I don't know." She even deduced that that person must be pretty low-level, or they would never have given Ling and Ling's parents the chance to detonate their wood spirit orbs. Clearly, Ling still remembered those words to this day. Low-level. Does that mean those people are outside the capital? Slowly, her memories started replaying themselves in her mind. The memory of her father and mother detonating their own wood spirit orbs. The memory of her clansmen being massacred. The memory of her younger brother letting out a heartbreaking scream. The memory of the bad news that extinguished even her last hope. Her pupils started swimming erratically. But she still didn't stop releasing the heaven-wounding thought-severing poison. She was normally an obedient girl who only knew how to say yes in front of Qianye. But for the first time, she disobeyed his order and kept spreading the heaven-wounding thought-severing poison further and further away. I finally have the power to take revenge. The day has finally arrived. For my parents and for my clan, they must die. They all must die. Her pupils and her hands started shaking more and more violently. Her face was rapidly losing all color. Slowly, even her emerald pupils were starting to turn black, the kind of black that should never appear in a wood spirit's eyes, much less a royal wood spirit. The sky poison pearl's light started growing weak and erratic. The shapeless form of the sky poison was also starting to turn unnaturally green as well. Ling! Ling! When Qianye shouted loudly inside Ling's mind, still to no avail, he finally wrestled the control over the sky poison pearl away from Ling and forced its power back into its body. When the sky poison pearl darkened completely, the emerald light in Ling's pupils ceased as well. She slowly fell on her back as she stared ahead. Qianye extended his arm and caught her gently. A long time later, Ling's eyes finally regained their usual focus and color. "Master," she murmured as if she had just woken up from a nightmare. "I became really scary just now, didn't I?" Qianye shook his head and hugged her gently. I actually disobeyed you and tried to kill everyone. Tears started forming in her eyes as she buried her head into his chest. Her shoulders shook slightly as she sobbed. "Father, mother, Linner, would they hate and fear me if they saw me like that?" "Of course not," Qianye said in the gentlest voice he ever used since he returned to the eastern divine region. Stroking her shaking, delicate shoulders, he continued, "You didn't disappoint anyone. It is the world who disappointed your race." She had succumbed to complete despair and darkness. Infinite hatred and the desire for revenge were the reasons she became the sky poison spirit in the first place. But even then, her kind nature hadn't extinguished completely. It was the one thing that shackled her vengeful thoughts and filled her with guilt far beyond her ability to handle. "You have accomplished the most impressive feat the wood spirit race has ever accomplished since its inception." Qianye hugged her even tighter. "They would only be proud of you. Thanks to you, no harm will ever come to the wood spirit race again," he declared with ironclad certainty. Cheeks stained with tears, Ling smiled and tried to say something back. However, her consciousness started blurring against her will due to deep exhaustion. Finally relaxing, she fell deeply asleep in Qianye's embrace. After sending Ling back into the sky poison pearl, he pointed into the air and left behind a weak sound recording profound formation. He shot one last glance at the realm beneath his feet before sneering and departing. Even now, the denizens of the Brahma monarch god realm still had no idea that Qianye had graced them with his presence, much less the fact that the entire capital was engulfed in the deadly, heaven-wounding thought-severing poison. 2 hours later, an arrogant voice broke above the sky of the Brahma monarch capital. "Qianye Fantian, do enjoy my gift to you, ha 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 ha." Several figures immediately took to the air and arrived at the location Qianye had been. Their expressions were ugly when they stared at the sound recording profound formation no one had detected until it started playing. How could they not be? No one had noticed Qianye or his handiwork until he was long gone. Qianye's voice continued to boom from the profound formation. "However, this devil master can grant you one chance to live and submit to me. Remember, you only have one chance. You have 7 days. 7 days later, you either serve me for eternity or die without a grave to remember you." Buzz. The profound formation crumbled on its own, and all the Brahma kings exchanged deep frowns with each other. At the same time, Qianye Fantian joined them with a dark expression. "My lord," the 5th Brahma king asked, "should we search for Qianye immediately? He may still be hiding nearby." "It's fine," Qianye Fantian said in a low tone. His expression was as dark as the abyss. Qianye's recorded words were entangling around his soul like a devilish curse. "Are you worried about his threat, my lord?" The 2nd Brahma king withdrew his consciousness and said, "I've already checked the entire capital, and nothing seems to be amiss at all. He may just be trying to frighten us with an empty threat." "An empty threat?" Forget Qianye Fantian. Not even most of the Brahma kings could bring themselves to believe that. After all, no one had forgotten the tragedy that had just engulfed the eternal heaven god realm and the moon god realm. One realm was slaughtered to the last, and the other was annihilated in a single breath. No one had believed that it could happen until it did. It's also possible that he is trying to incite the Southern Sea God Emperor to action, the first Brahma king said. Nan Wansheng hadn't gone far away, but he wouldn't move carelessly unless he was given no choice. This 7-day time limit could be what drives him to desperate actions. The logical deduction caused all the Brahma kings to nod in agreement. It was at this moment the 10th Brahma king, Qianye Ying'er, flew up to join them. Although his injuries were fine now, he wasn't at full health yet. He said immediately once he reached them, "My lord, we cannot overlook this. This may be Qi's revenge for what happened at Snow Song Realm." Qianye Fantian frowned for a long time before saying, "We are no eternal heaven, but you are right. We cannot delay our action any longer. Nan Wansheng should understand how terrifying the devil people truly are after hearing of the demise of the moon god realm. This is not the time to fight among ourselves right now." Qianye Fantian swept his gaze across everyone's faces. It is time to meet the Southern Sea God Emperor. Yes, it was time to tempt the Southern Divine Region into launching a decisive counterattack against the devil people. Suddenly, he stared intently at Qianye Ying'er's face. When a memory broke through the surface of his consciousness, his pupils immediately shrank into needles. "My lord," not understanding the sudden attention from his god emperor, Qianye Ying'er asked in a confused tone. He had no idea that his eyes were glowing a dark, sinister green. "What is it, my lord?" Qianye Fantian's reaction didn't escape the rest of the Brahma kings' notice either. They followed his gaze, stared at Qianye Ying'er's face, and froze. They would never forget this emerald gleam for as long as they lived. It was because it was the light of the sky poison pearl. When Qianye Fantian was tricked by Xianxia and Xia Qingyu and poisoned while he was still suffering from the evil infant's devilish energy, his pupils had glowed exactly like this. In fact, the unnatural light in Qianye Ying'er's eyes was even deeper than that. Qianye Ying'er looked even more confused. "Why are you all?" His expression froze before he finished speaking. His entire body started shaking uncontrollably as a soul-piercing coldness circulated throughout his whole body. He groaned as the greenish gleam in his eyes suddenly became much brighter. His aura started spiraling out of control as he collapsed to his knees and shook like crazy. The sky poison of the sky poison pearl and darkness profound energy amplified each other's power. Qianye Fantian had proven that with his own body back then. Because Qianye Ying'er was wounded by darkness profound energy just a while ago, he was the first out of everyone to suffer from the heaven-wounding thought-severing poison. Ying'er, the Brahma kings subconsciously moved closer to him, but they immediately recalled the past and backed away from him instead. The Brahma king started screaming in pain. As he tried to struggle to his feet, it became clear that even his face was starting to turn green as well. He looked to be in so much pain that his face looked as ugly as an evil spirit's. "Poison, it's poison," he shouted in terror as cold sweat drenched his entire body. He was Qianye Ying'er, the 10th Brahma king of the Brahma monarch god realm and a powerful level 9 divine master. At his level, he should be completely immune to any poison or nefarious energy. To his knowledge, the only poison that could even threaten him was the Southern Sea God realm's absolute god-slaying poison. The moment the sky poison awoke from its slumber, he felt like countless evil spirits were greedily devouring his body, his blood, his life force, and even his soul. He circulated his Brahma king divine power with all his might. But even though he was a late-stage divine master, all he could do was quieten the rampaging monsters inside his body a little, much less expel them from his body or annihilate them. "It's the sky poison pearl's poison," Qianye Fantian said in a low tone. "Calm down and circulate your aura. The sky poison is a kind of devilish poison, so the more you panic, the worse it becomes." Cold sweat was forming in his palm even as he spoke. He knew better than anyone what kind of torture Qianye Ying'er was going through, because he had been a victim of that nightmare himself. It was so terrible that he had surrendered Qianye Ying'er to Qianye just to escape it. "Ying'er, when were you poisoned by Qianye?" the first Brahma king asked with a shaky voice. "I don't know." Qianye Ying'er shook his head stiffly while sounding like he wanted to die. "I never saw him when I was on the way back from Snow Song Realm." Suddenly, the atmosphere in the Brahma monarch capital changed without warning. The unnatural distortion in the air caused everyone's vision to blur a little. Then painful screams started erupting from every corner of the capital. Everyone's pupils widened like saucers. A sea of green dots had suddenly appeared throughout the entire capital. The guards were lying on the ground, writhing in pain and screaming in despair. Even the Brahma monarch disciples, the Brahma monarch divine envoys, the Brahma monarch elders who were divine masters. Everywhere they looked, everywhere their spiritual sense reached, the profound practitioners of Brahma monarch realm were collapsing in droves. It was as if it would never end, as if the heavens had suddenly decided to punish them with an emerald nightmare. No, reality was far worse than that. Somehow the entire Brahma monarch capital had been turned into a sky-poison hell. What's going on? He was the first Brahma king, the most powerful and strong-willed of all Brahma kings, and his voice was trembling and his pupils were shaking uncontrollably. Right now, he would rather believe that he was stuck in a ridiculous nightmare. Qianye Fantian slowly turned his head and stared at his dazed subjects. The Brahma kings hadn't realized it yet, but a pair of green dots were slowly but surely growing larger inside all their pupils. He extended a finger and summoned a small orb of light. From its reflection, he could see a pair of green dots in his own eyes. Meanwhile, a terrible war was still being waged throughout the eastern divine region. More and more realms became tainted by blood and bodies. Although a long peace had turned most eastern divine region profound practitioners into cowards, not to mention that the destruction of the king realms were a huge blow to everyone's morale. It wasn't like they were entirely devoid of unyielding warriors. The Flying Star Realm was a powerful upper star realm in the eastern divine region. The Dreaming Soul Sword sect was the realm king sect of Flying Star Realm. It was also one of the few upper star realm sects with 2 divine masters in it. The Flying Star Realm king and Dreaming Soul Sword master was called Meng Qianye. He was a level 6 divine mazer. Meng Duangxi, his son, was the 8th place winner during the Profound God Convention. After 3 millennia in eternal heaven, he became a level 3 divine master. The core of their defense, 2 divine masters and dozens of divine sovereigns, was able to throw back wave after wave of devil people despite repeated assaults. In fact, they managed to kill countless devil people in the process. The Flying Star Realm was one of the footholds Qianye had ordered to take down no matter what, and the Upper Star Realm ordered to tackle it was none other than the Falling Star Realm. If judged by the name alone, it was the perfect realm to defeat the Flying Star Realm. In reality, though, the Flying Star Realm was a surprising tough nut to crack. Not only did the Falling Star Realm fail to succeed, they had suffered tremendous casualties in the process. The longer the battle dragged on, the more anxious the Falling Star Realm king became. This was especially true after he learned almost 70% of the footholds had been occupied already. These tenacious rats! The Falling Star Realm king glared at Meng Qianye and Meng Duangxi before threatening vocally. Our devil master is unrivaled under or above heaven. All of your king realms are already dead, so why are you still struggling futilely instead of surrendering to him? If you surrender now, you won't have to die. Do not send your innocent clansmen to their deaths for your stupidity. Heh! Meng Qianye sneered and raised his blood-drenched sword into the air. He declared proudly and hatefully, even in death, the profound practitioners of Flying Star Realm will never become the devil people's slaves. Besides, it is you monsters who should be worried about yourselves. He spoke loudly so that everyone in the sect could hear his voice. It is true that the Eastern Divine Region was taken by surprise, and it is true that we are at a disadvantage right now. However, the Western Divine Region and the Southern Divine Region will not stand by and do nothing. The day the 3 divine regions unite will be the day you die. Heh, stubborn fool! The Falling Star Realm king swore angrily. Kill them! The fierce battle restarted as profound light and sword energies flew everywhere and destroyed everything like mini disasters. Bodies littered the ground in just an instant. Although the devils were fatally determined and transformed by eternal calamity of darkness, they were fighting on the Dreaming Soul Sword sect's homeground after all. In fact, the defenders' morale grew each time they managed to throw back the devil people with sheer willpower. Not only did the devil people fail to take one step deeper into the Dreaming Soul Sword sect's territory, it wasn't long before they were forced to retreat again. They weren't the only ones who were failing either. A similar battle was happening all across the Eastern Star Realms. Kill them all! Wet your swords with the blood of the devil people! Meng Qianye roared after cutting off the heads of hundreds of devil people in one strike. It was supposed to lift his people's morale, but he suddenly felt a terrible chill and raised his head. The space above him suddenly split apart as a gorgeous woman with black hair and black robes slowly descended on the war-torn battlefield. She looked like she was having a relaxing stroll in a park, and the entire flying star realm darkened a little when she looked down at it. When the falling star realm king saw her, he shouted in fear and joy, "Well, welcome, Lady Yan Wu." Yan Wu didn't say anything. She simply extended a hand and blasted Meng Qianye with a black spear surrounded by sinister-looking black lightning. Meng Qianye was a level 6 divine master, but he felt like both his body and his soul would fall apart beneath the terrible power. "Royal father!" Meng Duangxi felt the same thing as he joined his father and retaliated against Yan Wu together. Crack, the two energies clashed loudly against one another, the impact so shrill that blood burst out of the ears of countless profound practitioners at the same time. Then, the darkness that devoured both energy and space and threw the father and son to the ground. Their defeat was as quick as it was decisive. Unperturbed by her victory, Yan Wu took a step forward and swung her spear horizontally. The power of the Yama devils started falling from the sky like black meteors. Boom! A halo of darkness spread 500 kilometers away in an instant. Countless flying star realm disciples and profound practitioners' blood were thrown into the air like leaking blood sacs. She twirled her spear again, and a black storm crushed 6 divine sovereigns and dozens of divine kings instantly. Even Dreaming Soul Sword Sect's great protective formation had been holding strong for several days, but that one attack caused black cracks to spread all across its surface. Dreaming Soul Sword Sect still didn't stop resisting. Roaring at the top of their lungs, Meng Qianye and Meng Duangxi burst out the rubble they had crashed into and charged toward Yan Wu like two blazing suns. By the time Qianye had returned to the eternal heaven god realm, it was already occupied by the northern divine region completely. Not a trace of eternal heaven profound aura could be found anywhere. Fen Deaki had taken it upon himself to count the loot they obtained after slaughtering a king realm. As it turned out, the eternal heaven realm still possessed a lot of wealth even after spending a ton of resources on recent major events. They were accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years after all. Rumble, Qianye expressionlessly circulated the laws of nothingness and reactivated the eternal heaven god realm's protection barrier. He had full control over it. The protection barrier for the heart of a king realm was powerful to say the least. But since the devil people had appeared directly inside the god realm, the protection barrier was rendered completely useless during the invasion. Now it was a mighty shield that protected the invaders instead. It also turned the former Eastern Divine Region King Realm into the strongest foothold the Northern Divine Region had. "Haven't we tackled all the footholds yet?" Qianye stared at the flashing dots on the profound projection before smiling. "If they enjoy struggling this much, then—" Suddenly, an aura that shouldn't be here approached him swiftly from the distance. Qianye stared at the direction it was coming from. Very soon, a tall man appeared in front of Qianye and bowed before he even took a breath. "Tianguhu greets the devil master." Qianye frowned. "Shouldn't you be in the north right now? Why are you here?" Tianguhu replied immediately. "The devil queen ordered me to deliver something very important to your hands." That she had sent Tianguhu meant that whatever she meant to deliver to his hands was incredibly important. Tianguhu raised his arms and unlocked the barrier surrounding the objects he was carrying. A couple of bluish orbs immediately entered Qianye's vision. A faint blue profound light sparkled like water ripples. Qianye immediately recognized it as the profound aura of the glazed light realm. Back at the profound god convention, he had seen it when fighting against Shui Meiyan and Shui Ying'er. 4 illusory glazed imagery jades? Where did you even get them? Qianye Ying'er stared at the bluish jades in Tianguhu's hands in astonishment. Illusory glazed imagery jades. This was the first time Qianye heard of this name. "It is an advanced, precious toy of some sort," Qianye Ying'er answered. "In essence, it is just another kind of profound imagery stone. However, it is a lot more precious than the common profound imagery stones out there. There are very few of them in this world because it can only be nurtured at the illusory heaven pond, a location where the starlight is the brightest. Besides being fancy-looking and rare, it is said that it can engrave a profound image without being detected." "Profound imagery stone?" Qianye said thoughtfully before taking the 4 stones from Tianguhu. His expression suddenly changed when his consciousness swept across them. Qianye Ying'er immediately noticed something wrong. "What is it?" But Qianye didn't give her a reply, so she took a step forward and scanned the illusory, glazed imagery jades in his hand herself. Her gaze froze and her expression and aura changed. Her reaction turned out to be even more drastic than Qianye's. She abruptly turned around and asked Tianguhu, "Who gave you these illusory glazed imagery jades?" "No. Who gave them to Kai Wao?" Tianguhu had barely exchanged any words with Qianye Ying'er in the past, and this was the first time he heard such urgency in Herhai's voice. Hiding his surprise, he recalled back to his meeting with Kai Wao before answering. "The Devil Queen mentioned a woman with the surname Shui, I think." "Was it Shui Yingyu or Shui Meiyin?" Qianye Ying'er asked urgently again, but she immediately turned toward Fen-Deaki and ordered, "Ready the profound jades of eternal heaven realm and turn on the great projection formation again." Fen-Deaki received his orders and went away without asking why. "It's fine," Qianye let out a disdainful chuckle after his surprise had passed. "I don't need to prove myself to anyone." "No, you do." But Qianye Ying'er refuted him immediately. Deep surprise and excitement was etched inside her eyes. "These 4 illusory glazed imagery jades are worth trillions of devil soldiers. Moreover, it affects the southern divine region and the western divine region as well. This is huge, Qianye. I can't believe that little girl had something this terrifying up her sleeves. Did she predict that this tragedy might come true? Heh, at any rate, she truly is the owner of the divine stainless soul." Even now, Qianye Ying'er still wasn't able to suppress the deep excitement in her voice. The fact that she used the word terrifying showed just how emotional she was. She was a prideful woman, and there was almost no one she acknowledged in her life. But right now, she could hardly suppress the admiration in her voice. This time, Qianye didn't voice his objection. It wasn't that he disagreed with his own statement earlier. He didn't need to prove himself to anyone because no one was worthy. But Qianye Ying'er's assessment was also completely correct. In terms of the war, not even trillions of soldiers was enough to describe its true value. Knowing this fact, it wouldn't even be surprising if Kai Wao had sent the 9 witches to deliver them over instead of Tianguhu. It only took a while for the eternal heaven projection to be re-energized, since Fen-Deaki was the one who took care of the work himself. Soon, the star tablets all across the eastern divine region started activating once more. Qianye Ying'er didn't entrust the illusory glazed imagery jade to anyone. She personally walked up to the great formation and put the first illusory glazed imagery jade into the slot herself. Every eastern divine region profound practitioner turned to look when the eternal heaven projection appeared once more. Countless battles were halted temporarily as a result. Unlike the first time, the projection showed a star region filled with unusual red light and a bunch of people and profound light. Everyone remembered the crimson light, the eerie crimson light that could be seen from every corner of the eastern divine region. It was clearly a scene during the Crimson Calamity. What shocked them even more was the people present in the projection. They saw the Brahma Heaven God Emperor, Eternal Heaven God Emperor, the Star Gods, the Moon Gods, the Guardians, the Holy Eve's Realm King, the Glazed Light Realm King. There were so many higher realm kings they couldn't even list all of them. They even saw the Southern Sea God Emperor of the Southern Divine Region, and the strongest God Emperor of the Western Divine Region and Supreme Ruler of Primal Chaos, the Dragon Monarch himself. Every single one of these people were famous in their own right, because they were all divine masters. There was only one exception. It was a man wearing a snow-white robe that identified him as a member of the Ice Phoenix sect. He was Qianye. Unlike the devil master they saw in the projection a couple of days ago, the Qianye in the projection was greeting his seniors with respect and moderation. They could see a bit of nervousness on his face when he looked at the crimson light on occasion. There was none of the killing intent or pools of abyss they had witnessed from the man who slaughtered an entire king realm. In fact, his eyes were so pure that he looked like he couldn't stand even the slightest bit of conflict. In the projection, when the Eternal Heaven God Emperor started talking about the Eternal Heaven General Assembly in an unbelievably heavy voice, they finally realized that it was a projection from 4 years ago. 4 years ago, in order to deal with the Crimson Disaster, the Eternal Heaven Realm had created a gigantic dimensional profound formation that was said to be connected to the edge of the Primal Chaos, and hosted the Eternal Heaven General Assembly, an assembly that only divine masters could participate in. This movement wasn't just known to the Eastern Divine Region. The entire God realm was aware of this. However, Almost no one knew what actually happened during the Eternal Heaven General Assembly besides the participating Divine Masters. About 2 to 3 months after that assembly, the Crimson Crack suddenly vanished from existence. The profound beasts no longer rampaged ether as well. The Crimson Crack was said to be a hole in primal chaos, and that they were ultimately able to destroy it by gathering everyone's power. They even managed to expel the greatest enemy of the world, the evil infant, out of the primal chaos in the process. It was also around that time Qianye was exposed as a devil person and hunted throughout the entire God realm. Right now, everyone was treated to a scene they had never seen before, the full scene of the Eternal Heaven General Assembly that had taken place back then. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor spoke of the assembly's true objective before moving on to a heavier story. He talked about the legend of the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor and the devil gods she commanded, a tale that sounded so fantastical they would have dismissed it immediately if it hadn't come from the mouth of the Eternal Heaven God Emperor. Not long after Eternal Heaven God Emperor had spoken, the legend quickly proved its authenticity. They saw the Divine Masters working together to attack the Crimson Crack, saw a terrifying woman in black slowly walking out of it after their failure. Although it was just a projection, the woman still gave off a pressure that threatened to crush the souls of all the living beings in the Eastern Divine region. The filthy god race, they merely sent a bunch of lowly mortal creatures like you to welcome this ruler. Her unparalleled voice marked the return of the Devil Emperor to the primal chaos. The Divine Masters were shivering, and the God Emperors were shaking, even the strongest of them all. The Dragon Monarch was trembling in fear. They saw the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor wiping out the 3 Brahma gods like she was crushing an ant. They saw the Divine Masters and God Emperors who towered above all of them dropping to their knees and begging for mercy with unbelievable humility. "Senior Devil Emperor, will you allow this junior to say something?" Only one person had stepped out to face the Devil Emperor when everything seemed to be lost. By exposing his heretic god inheritance and the sky-poisoned pearl, he was somehow able to extinguish the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's anger and killing intent, and stop her from killing anyone else. What happened after that shocked them even more. This little king, Qianye Fantian, is willing to forever swear loyalty and servanthood to my Lord Devil Emperor along with the Brahma Monarch God realm. If we even show a hint of disloyalty, it will definitely cause me, Qianye Fantian, and my entire Qianye clan to be struck by lightning again and again, cause us to be scoured off the face of the earth. The Brahma Heaven God Emperor had dropped to his knees, bowed his head in the most humble manner imaginable, and swore an oath of loyalty so pathetic that it made even the profound practitioners of a lower star realm cringe. After that, the God Emperors and the Realm Kings all followed suit. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor, the Southern Sea God Emperor, the Dragon Monarch, everyone was rushing to be the first to swear their undying loyalty to the Devil Emperor. It was unimaginable that these kings of kings, these gods-like beings, could have a day like this. What honor! What courage! There was only the lowest of the low. By now, all the wars across the star regions had stopped. An eerie silence hung over the entire Eastern Divine region, as both the Eastern region profound practitioners and the devil people stared at the projection on the sky, unwilling to miss even an instant of it. It was because they had a feeling that something was about to happen, that the truth that had been hidden from the world for so long was about to be unveiled. As for the higher realm kings who participated in the General Assembly and thus knew the whole truth, their expressions suddenly turned both ugly and complicated. An extremely bad premonition was growing in their hearts, but the projection was coming from the Eternal Heaven God realm. They couldn't stop it even if they wanted to. The Eastern region profound practitioners watched as the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor took Qianye away. The image then changed to a different world. It was a world covered in ice and snow. The higher realm kings, the God Emperors, and Qianye were all there. In the projection, Qianye was calmly and confidently declaring to the world that the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor had promised not to bring harm to the world. The God Emperors and higher realm kings looked mad with delight. The Eternal Heaven God Emperor even bowed deeply to Qianye and said, "Qianye, no, God-child Yun. The Devil Emperor's return should have resulted in the end of the world. None of us had even dared to dream of an outcome like this. If it wasn't for you, forget the peace that should come with the appeasement of the Devil Emperor. None of us should even be alive today. Please accept a bow from this old one. Qianye, no, God-child Yun. The Devil Emperor's return should have resulted in the end of the world. None of us had even dared to dream of an outcome like this. If it wasn't for you, forget the peace that should come with the appeasement of the devil emperor. None of us should even be alive today. Please, accept a bow from this old one. God, child Messiah, there is no one who deserves this title more than you do. There may be none who deserve a bow from me, but you do. In fact, there is no one in the world who shouldn't show you their thanks. The Brahma Heaven God Emperor was also thanking Qianye deeply. The eternal Heaven God Emperor is correct. You have saved the world single-handedly and turned away the doom of the God realm. There is no one in the world who shouldn't thank you for the eternal peace you brought us. Following closely behind the God Emperors were the higher realm kings. Please accept a bow from this little king, God Child Yun. Your achievements and virtues deserve to be remembered forever, God Child Yun. God Child Yun's favor is something we may not be able to repay even in 1,000,000 lifetimes. Please, ask the Infinite Star Realm anything if you have any requests. The Outstanding Sun Realm will even die even a horrible death to carry out your orders, God Child Yun. From here on, the enemy of God Child Yun is the enemy of Outstanding Sun Realm. The profound practitioners of the Eastern Divine Region were all stunned. For a long time, the only thing people could hear were here as their own wild heartbeats. The third projection took place at the conferred God stage of the Eternal Heaven God Realm. The heaven-smiting Devil Emperor herself had shown up and told them something that sounded like it came straight out of a fantasy. This ruler has decided that her people will not be returning to the primal chaos. 6 days from now, she herself will be leaving the primal chaos as well. The lot of you no longer have to worry. The heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's words stunned everyone, not only because she was an unparalleled existence and the supreme ruler of all, but because she chose to sacrifice herself and her entire clan for the peace of the world. Words couldn't even begin to describe their shock, especially because she was a devil. The empress of the true devils no less. That wasn't all. It was accompanied by with a sense that everything they knew had been was turned upside down. The eternal Heaven God Emperor appeared in the projection with a look of deep gratitude on his face. He bowed deeply to her and said, "We will never forget that Senior Devil Emperor was willing to sacrifice her own to protect the people of the primal chaos. We will never forget your kindness, compassion, and virtue. It's a shame that we are so lowly that there's nothing we cannot do to repay your favor. Please, accept a bow from this old one at least." Everyone else also bowed to her and shouted their gratitude at the on top of their lungs. They almost sounded like the worshippers of a religion. Compassion, virtue. But the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's devilish voice was scornful. What a bunch of foolish and naive mortals you are. Did you really think this ruler is doing this for your sakes? Heh, did you seriously think that this pathetic world is worth this ruler's sacrifice? There is one person you should all be giving your thanks to, but that person isn't me. Jia Yuan said coldly. The only things that this ruler brings are death and destruction. What favor? What virtue? You think the likes of you and this world are worthy of my attention? The reason this ruler has chosen to leave is because someone has absolved her of her lifetime regret and fulfilled her final wish. This ruler is the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor. It is beneath me to owe a mere mortal a favor. The reason this ruler has chosen to abandon her clansmen and leave the primal chaos is simply to repay the favor and fulfill her promise. It has absolutely nothing to do with anyone else. This person is Qianye. Inside and outside the projection, everyone focused their gazes onto Qianye. You'd best remember his name and his virtuous achievement for the rest of your lives. Never forget who it was that saved you from the brink of despair when you enjoy life in the primal chaos. The heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's figure vanished from the projection there and then. However, her voice was forever imprinted in the hearts and souls of everyone. When the Devil Emperor was gone, the eternal Heaven God Emperor took the lead again and thanked Qianye deeply. God Child Yun, please accept a bow from this old one. God Child Yun, if it wasn't for you, the devil gods would have caused havoc in the God realm and the entire primal chaos itself after their return. As the savior of the entire world, there is no higher bow, praise, or gratitude that you don't deserve. Everyone in this world, including the future generations, should remember your name for eternity. The rest of the God Emperors and Divine Masters also grouped up around Qianye, bowed deeply to Qianye, and spouted the most exaggerated words of praise and gratitude they could think of. And every single one of them addressed him using his new title of honor, God Child Messiah. The 3 projections weren't very long. They definitely didn't include everything those who lived through those experiences remembered, because a lot of unnecessary details were removed. But it was still enough to present the moment the Devil Emperor arrived in hate, and the true reason she chose to leave them all completely. The profound practitioners of the Eastern Divine region felt like they had just experienced a grand daydream. They didn't know how terrible the Crimson Calamity really was. They didn't know that the ancient heaven-smiting Devil Emperor still existed to this day, and that she had actually returned to the world at a certain point in time. She could have destroyed the entire world with one finger and a thought. Divine Master, God Emperors, they were all equally as small as ants or dust in front of her. However, the God realm hadn't been embroiled in a terrible disaster during the months she was back at the primal chaos. They didn't even know she had returned in the first place. It was again, all thanks to Qianye. It was him who made her choose to leave the primal chaos. It was only now they knew that the Eastern Divine region, no, the entire God realm was teetering on the edge of hell. It was Qianye who saved them. The God realm, the entire primal chaos from the brink of purgatory. Had the Devil Emperor chosen to vent her anger? Had she allowed the devil gods to return? The Eastern Divine region might have been wiped out of existence already. That was how much they hated the descendants of the gods. Even if they survived, they would have had to live in an eternal hell of fear and slavery. They saw countless God Emperors, King Realm experts, and Higher Realm kings from every divine region except the Northern Divine region in the projection. But not one of them had chosen to tell them the truth. If the reason they hadn't said anything before the Devil Emperor left was because she ordered them to keep quiet about it, then what about afterward? Why did they tell the world afterward that they were the ones who saved the world, when all they could really do in front of the Devil Emperor was beg? Why did they tell the world that the Divine Masters and God Emperors were the ones who sealed the Crimson Crack, when all they really did was cling to Qianye for survival? They even took advantage of the situation and knocked the evil infant out of the primal chaos. The first projection had shown exactly how futile their efforts were. Despite combining everyone's power, the attack of the Divine Masters did nothing to affect the Crimson Crack at all. It was like a bunch of ants trying to topple a tree with brute strength. There was no way they were the ones who ultimately sealed the Crimson Crack. Still, no one had heard a peep about Qianye's achievements, much less the title God Child Messiah. All they remembered was the order to kill Qianye on the day the Crimson Crack finally disappeared. A bounty issued by every king realm in the entire world. The irony ran especially deep in the case of the eternal Heaven God Emperor, the man who bowed before Qianye and addressed him as God Child Messiah, again and again in the projection. He was the one who set up an irrefusable bounty and encouraged every realm in the Eastern Divine region, even the lower realms, to hunt down Qianye. Of course, they could hardly forget that the King Realms and Upper Star Realms had taken Qianye's birthplace, a lower realm hostage to force the young man to show himself, and its subsequent destruction. After the Snow Song Realm King saved Qianye at the cost of her own life, the young man ultimately escaped to the Northern Divine region. It was impossible to describe the emotion churning inside everyone's stomach right now. They felt like their hearts and souls were twisted by something cold and unfeeling. Felt like a bunch of lowly, pathetic, and ignorant fools who were played like a fiddle by the people they looked up to. The projection wasn't over yet. The fourth projection quickly followed after the third. This projection was something no one had ever seen before until now. The heaven-smiting Devil Emperor was standing in a dark environment. Dark mist could be seen rising from every corner of the image. Both the Eastern region profound practitioners and the Devil people identified the dark space in front of her as the Northern Divine region immediately. The heaven-smiting Devil Emperor was gazing toward the distance with a bleak expression on her face. She said slowly, "I had meant Moe no harm when I attended that meeting, but he had set up a trap and expelled me and my clan out of the primal chaos. Despite this, I could find nothing but praise for the man in all the historical records I've seen. Heh, what a joke. If it wasn't for Qianye, if I didn't care if Nixuan's name was tarnished because of me, Moe and Zaiqi's power, will, and descendants, I would have gladly wiped out everything that was connected to the god race from this world forever." She slowly raised her hand and pointed at the infinite darkness in front of her. "Look at the descendants of darkness. They are permanently trapped in a cage of darkness and treated like livestock. If they dared to take even one step out of their cage, they would be hunted down by the successors of the god race. If cruelty, murder, and oppression are sins, then who are the true sinners here? The bearers of the so-called righteous way have brutalized, murdered, and oppressed these people, But no one has accused them of sinning, have they? These foolish mortals have never questioned why the devils are an evil that must be eradicated. They never even considered that the malice they applied to the devil people was tens of thousands of times worse than what they received. If we must classify devils as evil, then who are the real devils here, I wonder? She was addressing the question to herself and all those who heard her words. Every word she said shook the heart and pierced the soul. Why were the devils evil? What had they ever done to deserve such a fate? The question froze everyone present. The Eastern Divine Region was undoubtedly facing a devilish disaster right now. It was unprecedented and absolutely terrifying. That was the problem. It was unprecedented. The God realm had never faced an assault like this until today. From the moment they were born, they were told that the devils were heretics that couldn't be allowed to exist in the world. They were told that the devil people were dark, cruel, sinful, and malicious creatures, and that killing them was the righteous duty of any profound practitioner. It was the most common of common senses, just like man and woman. Fire and water. No one had ever questioned it because it was laughable, and in some cases even sinful, to try. Why were the devil people evil? What kind of unforgivable sins had they committed? Had they caused a calamity so terrible that there weren't enough books in the world to describe how heinous it was? They were shocked to discover they couldn't come up with a single answer. It was because they didn't need a reason. It was the belief and common sense spread by the king realms and the upper star realms after all. For 1,000,000 years, the denizens of the northern divine region had been forced to hole up in their cage under the oppressing power of the 3 divine regions. Worse, the cage slowly shrank because the amount of darkness, profound energy, and the primal chaos was decreasing. Every year, countless devil people died to strive for an ever-decreasing amount of realms and resources. It was only natural to look down on the northern divine region and make fun of them. It was a meritorious achievement that everyone took pride in. If someone were to try and tally the number of devil people who died due to oppression for the past 1,000,000 years or so, they wouldn't be able to. It was a terrifying and unimaginable number. If murder and oppression were sins, then the 3 divine regions wouldn't be able to repay their debt, even if the next 10,000 generations of their people spent their whole lives atoning. To think that I, the ruler of devils, actually chose to sacrifice myself and my remaining clansmen for a bunch of lowly mortals who mistreated my kind. What a joke! What a joke! Her cold smile was full of irony and sorrow. When the denizens of the Eastern Divine Region recalled the truth they were told a couple of years ago and the truth they saw today, yes, it truly was a joke. The heaven-smiting devil emperor slowly turned around and stared directly at her audience. It felt like she was gazing into their hearts through the projection. This proved that the heaven-smiting devil emperor knew that she was being recorded by the profound imagery stone and allowed it. I will be leaving in 3 days. I have talked to the evil infant at the god realm of absolute beginning and told her to conceal herself next to Qianye 3 days from now. Those mortals may be calling Qianye the god-child Messiah and swearing to me that they will forever remember his benevolence, but I am too well acquainted with the filthiness of human nature to trust them blindly, especially those who sit at the top. They will never allow someone to surpass them unless they have no other choice. I'm worried that they would conceal Qianye's achievements and turn against him the moment I leave the primal chaos, benevolence, righteousness, kindness. Why would they care about these things when they could have status, profit, and fame instead? To that end, they can go as low as you can imagine. Of course, I hope that this is just my pessimism speaking. I hope that the evil infant's presence will be enough to dissuade them from exposing their ugliest selves. It is one of the reasons I feel like I can leave the primal chaos in peace. But the heaven-smiting devil emperor's gaze suddenly changed as she said slowly, "Even if the worst-case scenario I envisioned or worse were to come true, you'll save him and protect him no matter what, am I right?" No one answered her question. The projection ended there and then, dropping the entire Eastern Divine Region into an unimaginable, oppressive silence. When the projection ended, everyone felt like they had just awoken from a long, long dream, a dream that left them in cold sweat and a completely new view of the world around them. The Crimson Calamity ended peacefully because of Qianye. The irresistible calamity that should have embroiled the entire God realm didn't happen because of Qianye, not because of those God emperors or divine masters. Even the ruler of devils, the person they thought to be the symbol of pure evil and an unforgivable existence, the heaven-smiting devil emperor, had chosen to exile herself and her people from the primal chaos for the sake of the mortals. After that, not only did no one speak of Qianye's achievements, he was hunted down by the people who knew the truth, made to witness the destruction of his own birth planet, and forced to escape to the northern divine region in the end. Even the fame that should be his was divided among the people who had destroyed his whole life. Meanwhile, they, the profound practitioners of the eastern divine regions, continued to look up to these monsters like a bunch of clowns, singing their praises and supporting their efforts to hunt down the God-child Messiah who had saved them all, Qianye. Were they insulted? No. Were they angry? Number were they sad? Number were they lost? No. The revelation was so thoroughly shocking that all thoughts and emotions were wiped from their minds, including their faith. The young man on the conferred God stage, and the projection had looked so dazzling and courageous. His eyes had shone like the brightest stars in the darkest night. That same man had massacred the eternal heaven realm and ravaged tens of thousands of realms without mercy. In that moment, they finally understood why. After committing literally the greatest act in the God realm, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that every man and woman with the power of the God race in them owed him their life. He had been repaid with the cruelest, most despicable payback one could think of. Even they, the people he saved, had unwittingly but surely become the accomplices who pushed him into the abyss. There was a dazed expression on the face of every Eastern Divine Region profound practitioner. They would rather that what they just saw was a ridiculous dream, that their faith and common sense weren't crumbling, that the people they admired and worshipped weren't exposed for who they really were. On the other side, the Northern Divine Region profound practitioners were losing all their killing intent and brutality. 1 moment ago, they were trying to murder their hated enemies. Now they couldn't even stop the tears pouring down their cheeks. The Devil Master had sacrificed himself for the sake of the world. The Devil Master had single-handedly saved everyone. The God realm was peaceful because of the act of kindness of a devil. The heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's words had punched right through the wall around their hearts and dragged out the sorrow they had pent up for far too long. Ying'er withdrew the 4 illusory glazed imagery jades and turned off the projection formation. The burning moon realm's profound practitioners guarding the place wore stunned expressions as well. Devil people were rejected by the world, and they themselves had gotten used to their fates a long time ago. But someone had finally spoken up for them, and it was none other than the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor herself. She had shown the world the truth of devils by forgiving the world. It was very difficult to change one's perception of reality. But when you saw with your own eyes that the one who forgave the world was the Devil Emperor herself, and the one who saved the world was a devil person, it might just be enough to overturn the prejudice that had taken root in the people's hearts since forever. At the very least, the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's words were nailed into everyone's mind. "I can't believe the Devil Master went through all that," Tianguhu muttered in a daze. This was the first time he understood why Qianye hated the 3 divine regions as much as he did. Lady Qianye is correct. Fantian let out a long sigh of relief. These 4 special profound imagery stones were definitely worth as much as trillions of devil soldiers. He might be a devil person born in the northern divine region, but even he could understand how big of an impact this truth would have on the minds of the eastern divine region's profound practitioners. Moreover, it was only a matter of time before the western divine region and southern divine region were affected as well. There was a saying that goes, "Besieging the heart is superior to besieging a city," not to mention that this particular mental attack was powerful enough to shatter one willpower and faith where they stood. Considering the sheer number of divine masters who appeared in all the scenes except the last one, only a perfect profound imagery stone that could record a scene without a trace, such as the illusory glazed imagery jade, could have eluded everyone's senses. Fantian saw how surprised Qianye Ying'er was when she saw that the objects Tianguhu delivered were 4 illusory glazed imagery jades. This meant that the illusory glazed imagery jade was rare even for someone at her level. Someone had used something this precious to record this while all those divine masters and god emperors were present. They should understand how dangerous their actions were, and how real the risk of discovery was. No matter how you looked at it, it clearly wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. The recorder had prepared all of this just in case some sort of worst-case scenario happened, and it had. Whoever this person was, their sense of danger, intelligence, and ability to plan ahead was terrifying to say the last. Qianye Ying'er shot a glance at Qianye. The identity of the recorder was as clear as day. The illusory glazed imagery jade was an object only the glazed light realm could produce. It was said that the divine stainless soul had the ability to foresee danger. The person who passed this item to Qianye was a woman with the surname of Shui. Not to mention that Qianye Fantian never appeared in the scenes even though Qianye Ying'er and Qianye Fantian did once or twice. Qianye Fantian was clearly the one who recorded all of these momentous occasions in secret. The timing, the motive, the illusory glazed imagery jade, the divine stainless soul, it was all perfect. It couldn't be anyone else but her. Qianye Ying'er added, "It's a bit of a shame that there are no recordings of the day the Devil Emperor left the primal chaos, or HMPH. It was a shame, but it wasn't surprising. No one from Glazed Light Realm had shown up on that day after all. It was probably because her divine stainless soul had given her prior warning. 1. What Qianye Ying'er was really curious about was why the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor had purposely met Qianye Fantian alone and brought her to the northern divine region. Was it because she was the owner of the extremely rare divine stainless soul? She supposed that that was the only answer. Qianye Ying'er commented again. To think that that little girl had prepared something like this way back then, not to mention that the timing of the reveal is absolutely perfect. Had Qianye Fantian chosen to release this when Xianxia was hunted by every realm in the world, the people would be angry, but it wouldn't change Xianxia's fate in the slightest. Now that Xianxia had returned as the Devil Master and massacred a king realm with absolute power, the truth was capable of shattering the wills of all those who wished to resist him. It was now 10 times simpler to take control of the Eastern Divine Region, and in the future the Western Divine Region and the Southern Divine Region as well. Xianxia didn't rebuke Qianye Ying'er for calling Qianye Fantian a little girl. He simply stared forward and blanked out a little. Back at the Profound God Convention, the 15-year-old girl had inexplicably attached herself to him after their fierce battle on the conferred God stage. He had had to hide from her and her father, because the latter wanted to kill him for seducing his daughter. Despite having spent 3,000 years cultivating inside eternal heaven divine realm, it didn't look like she had grown a day older since the day they met. Her love for him hadn't faded either. Every time she looked at him, it was as if there were a billion stars shining inside her eyes. If there was one change he noticed in her, it would be that her temperament was now a mixture of innocence and womanly charm. Sometimes she acted as pure as a maiden, and sometimes she was as bewitching as a vixen. He never noticed the secret efforts of the girl he had thought to be naive, until now. In the Flying Star Realm, the battle between the Dreaming Soul Sword Sect and the Falling Star Realm had come to a pause when the projection started. Even after the projection ended, blood stench and an oppressive silence still enveloped the entire battlefield. The Falling Star Realm King was so agitated that he was shaking uncontrollably. Suddenly, he turned around to face the Dreaming Soul Sword Sect and shouted, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The Devil Emperor herself is defending us, and our Devil Master is the one who saved all your lives, the true Messiah. But not only was he betrayed by the people he saved, they tried to silence him once and for all. Besides that, we, the children of darkness, were called devils for 1,000,000 years, when you are the ones who have oppressed us without reason all this time. You are the true devils." Yan Wu was staring at the sky even after the projection had ended. As a member of a king realm, she wasn't completely unaware of the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor's return. But after seeing the whole truth and knowing what happened to Xianxia before he escaped to the northern divine region, who wouldn't feel sad for him? The moment the God-child Messiah had saved the world, he was immediately driven to a dead end and slandered as a devilish threat that must be cleansed. Was there anything in the world that was sadder and more ironic than this? Even a true devil would at least express their gratitude first before baring their fangs, right? The Falling Star Realm King's impassioned statement drove the rest of the dark, profound practitioners to shout at the Flying Star Realm profound practitioners as well. But the latter couldn't say anything in return. Their faces were blank and their eyes looked empty. "Sect Master," a Dreaming Soul Sword Sect disciple murmured, Is this all true?" Even after they saw and heard everything with their own eyes, they still wouldn't believe the truth. Everyone turned to look at Meng Qianye and Meng Duangxi. They were present in all 3 scenes, meaning that they had experienced all those events firsthand. Meng Qianye's expression changed again and again. It was impossible to deny this when the proof had just been broadcasted throughout the entire Eastern Divine Region. He let out a sigh before shouting strongly, Is this the time to question right or wrong? Our sect is in danger right now. How many of your kin have been killed by the devil people? They are just one step away from destroying our home. Meng Kanyang's words jolted everyone's senses back to normal. When they looked at the sea of blood and corpses around them, their fighting spirit and profound energy returned to their bodies once more. Then a weak voice suddenly rang from a corner. If it wasn't for Qianye, our home would be gone a long time ago. Isn't this just the karmic retribution the Eastern Divine Region deserves? The speaker was a perfectly ordinary disciple. He was covered in blackish wounds, and he was on the verge of dying and joining the pile of corpses beside him. Normally, someone like him wouldn't have any say in a Realm King sect at all. But his dying sigh had punched into everyone's hearts and extinguished their renewed fighting spirit almost instantly. He, another grievously wounded dreaming soul disciple, let out a bloody chuckle and caught everyone's attention. He was about to die, and he wasn't going to hold back his last words. I spent half a lifetime cultivating and working to get to where I am now, and I was honored to join the Dreaming Souls Sword Sect. It was because our sword is known as the Sword of Righteousness and Goodness. So, Sect Master, why is my sword so dirty? This time, even Meng Kanyang and Meng Duengxi were starting to break under the immense pressure that was guilt. Back then, the Dragon Monarch, the Southern Sea God Emperor, the Brahma Heaven God Emperor, and the Eternal Heaven God Emperor were all present when Qianye was attacked. Whatever their true opinions might be, they thought that they had no choice but to choose a side. At the time, their guilt wasn't that strong because everyone else, even the God Emperors, were siding against Qianye, and it was lessened even more when Qianye revealed his dark, profound energy. At the time, there was only one way things could have ended for Qianye, and it was so final that even they thought that that was the way it should be. They had sworn to lock the truth in their hearts and keep it from the world forever. Unfortunately, that the truth was now exposed. The depths of their ingratitude, their shamelessness, and their vileness were dragged out into the open. Even they were so ashamed that their scalps were numb. The one who forgave the world was the Devil Emperor, and the one who saved the world was the Devil Master. In comparison, the masters of the Eastern Divine Region were about as dirty as they could get. When the disciples and even the elders started looking at them in a new light, Meng Kanyang and Meng Duengxi knew that their image was tainted forever. In the sky, Yan Wu slowly lowered her Yama Devil spear and pointed at her disheartened enemies. Her dark, imposing voice pressed down on their already chaotic minds like a mountain. You have one last chance, surrender or die. Clang. A fearless and impassioned sword attendant who was fighting at the front line lost his grip on his sword. It clattered against the ground loudly and shrilly. The belief that had empowered him his whole life had just been shredded to pieces a minute ago. The stronger the belief, the worse the destruction. The first sword to hit the ground was like the first drop of water to leak out of a breaking dam. After that, 10, 100, 10,000, countless swords fell from their masters' hands, lost their light, and became one with the bloodied ground. Everyone knew that there was a world of difference between the ideal and the reality of the righteous way. But it was still something most profound practitioners strove to achieve. It had been an honor they were willing to devote their whole lives to protect. To lose even that was a blow to the mind so cruel that it was unbearable. The Flying Star Realm was but one of the many realms that were undergoing a similar change. The entire war was cascading in the Devil People's favor. At the same time, the truth of the Crimson Calamity was re-recorded in many forms and spread toward the Southern Divine Region and the Western Divine Region at an insane speed. It was unstoppable. Eastern Divine Region. There was a small, profound arc hiding in a desolate corner of a smaller star realm. It was old and only several dozens meters long, but it was covered in dozens of high-level isolation profound formations. The identity of the passengers it carried would stun anyone should they learn of it. One of them was Golden Moon God Yue Wuji. He was temporarily appointed as the leader of the Moon Gods since the death of the Moon God Emperor. 2, however, the Moon God realm had just been annihilated some time ago. Hundreds of thousands of years of history gone in just the blink of an eye. Could they really still call themselves Moon Gods after losing even their homeworld? Yue Wuji watched the projection from Eternal Heaven Realm quietly. For a moment his eyes were trembling with emotion, but he quickly regained his cool when he turned around to face his people. Let's go. No, why are we leaving? We haven't taken revenge for our master yet. Blue Jade Moon God Yao Yue cried tearfully as she struggled. Unfortunately for her, several moon gods were working together to completely seal her movement. She couldn't break free no matter what she tried. "This is an order," Yue Wuji declared while opening his hand. The light of the imperial moon glazed pearl glowed through his fingers. "Yue Wuji," Yao Yue uttered through gritted teeth. "Our star realm is destroyed, our master is dead, and you, the temporary moon god emperor, choose to hide like a coward. You coward, the title of the moon god emperor will be tarnished forever if someone like you were allowed to bear it. Struggle some more and leak our auras, and you might get us all killed," Yue Wuji said expressionlessly. Yao Yue's struggle finally subsided a bit. Yue Wuji slowly withdrew his fingers before saying, "As long as the imperial moon glazed pearl doesn't fade, the moon god realm will rise again one day. But if we die now, then there won't be a divine moon now and forever." He closed his eyes as a bit of pain entered his voice. "Yao Yue, I was a moon god for almost 10,000 years, so trust me when I say that my love for the moon god realm exceeds my love for my own life, and that is on par with yours at the very least. One day you will understand my decision." The old profound arc took off and carried the surviving moon gods and moon god envoys toward the unknown. 1. Yue Wuji is Yue Wuya's younger brother and the fastest man in the moon god realm. When the will to protect vanished from the heart, so did the defense line of the eastern divine region. It was already crumbling in the first place, but the temporary stalemate was completely broken after the truth was announced through the eternal heaven projection. Over 90% of the footholds were taken in just a day. Once all the footholds were occupied, the eastern divine region's lifeline would fall into the hands of the northern divine region, eternal heaven realm. A pitch-black profound arc appeared above the tattered lands of the eternal heaven god realm before descending slowly. "Big brother Xianxia," a melodious voice resounded through the air before the profound light of the profound ship had even faded. Then a young girl dropped from the sky and flew straight toward Xianxia like a black butterfly, specks of light glittering around her. "Impudent!" A burning moon divine envoy moved toward the young girl in an attempt to stop her, only to be kicked back to his spot by an angry Fen Deaki. "Are you blind? That's the Soul Sky warship. Do you think that ship fetches ordinary passengers?" Xianxia turned around and faced Shui Meiyan. Her beautiful face was covered in tears. She buried her face deep into Xianxia's chest, hugged and cried loudly. The dam was broken even before she reached Xianxia, and his shirt was wet with tears in the blink of an eye. "HMPH?" Qianye Ying'er crossed her arms before her chest before looking away. The girl in front of him looked the same as ever. Her black eyes, black hair, black dress, even her smile and her tears matched his memory of Shui Meiyan perfectly. He had turned from the god-child messiah into the devil master. His heart was filled with hate for the three divine regions. His hands were wet with the blood of countless lives of the eastern divine region, and yet she still hugged him like he meant the world to her. Her feelings for him hadn't changed one bit despite his drastic, devilish change. Xianxia put his hand on her head and stroked it slightly. A couple more people descended from the Soul Sky warship, and the Moon Eater and the Burning Moon divine envoys bowed in unison. "Greetings, Devil Queen." Kai Waiao slowly descended to the ground before smiling at the touching scene in front of her. She was followed by two people, but they weren't her usual attendants, Jai Xin and Jai Ling this time. The first person was a beautiful woman with eyes that looked like a pair of moons above the sea. The second person was a middle-aged man in blue robes. It was Shui Ying'er and Shui Qianheng. Their cultivation level, Shui Ying'er's in particular because she was a level 5 divine master, and the lack of darkness in their profound auras caused the Burning Moon profound practitioners to frown a little. But no one acted because they had come with Kai Waiao herself. When Xianxia looked at them with rare gentleness, his eyes were completely devoid of their usual darkness. Shui Qianheng's aura marked him as a middle-stage divine sovereign. As expected, the rumors that Xia Qingyu had crippled him were true. Shui Ying'er shot Xianxia a complicated look before starting. Shui Ying'er from Glazed Light Realm greets the Northern Region Devil Master. Shui Qianheng was about to salute him as well, but Xianxia immediately pushed down his hands before replying, "Senior Shui, I'm sorry for involving you in my mess." That one line was enough to make Shui Ying'er and Shui Qianheng stare at him blankly. By now, every man and woman in the Eastern Divine Region had been made to witness Xianxia's ruthlessness and cruelty. No one who saw the way he ordered the massacre of the Eternal Heaven Realm would doubt that he had transformed into a true devil of hatred and vengeance. Yet there was also no mistaking the sincere regret behind his apology. They knew immediately that the abyss hadn't completely devoured his humanity. Qianye shook his head as a relieved smile spread across his lips. What are you talking about? The glazed light realm has simply chosen to stay true to their convictions. Besides, I knew that you would come back one day. It's just... His smile grew a bit more complicated. I wasn't expecting it to be this quick or drastic. I thought it would be another millennium before I saw you again. Meanwhile, Qianye finally looked up from Qianye's chest and stared at his face blankly. She didn't care where she was or how many people were watching her right now. All the girl wanted to do right now was to stare at him for as long as she could, to lessen the years of longing and worry in her heart until they were gone. Just like before, Qianye was demonically beautiful. It was to the point where a person was in danger of being bewitched just by looking her in the eye, after glancing at Qianye and sneaking a look at Qianye Ying'er. The Burning Moon Profound practitioners wisely lowered their gaze to the floor. I'm so glad you're okay, big brother Qianye, she whispered. There hasn't been a day I lived without worrying about you. I thought it would take a very, very long time before I could meet you again, thank goodness. Qianye Ying'er couldn't stand hearing her loving whispers any longer, so she interrupted the conversation by force. Are these illusory glazed imagery jades yours? The illusory glazed imagery jades only exist in our glazed light realm, Qianye Ying'er replied coolly. Qianye Ying'er. Qianye wiped away the tears on Qianye's face gently before looking her in the eye. Qianye, are you really the one who imprinted the projections? Although all signs were pointing toward Qianye, he still wanted to hear the answer from her own mouth. It was impossible to dismiss the effects, affection, and love behind the illusory glazed imagery jades. Amen, Qianye smiled brightly with a nod. Her eyes shone like star diamonds in that moment. Although I know the illusory glazed imagery jade can record things without a trace, I must admit that I was pretty nervous at the time. Luckily, no one noticed what I was doing from the start until the end. Her reply caused a shiver in every dark, profound practitioner present at the scene. They immediately looked at her in a completely different light from before. Qianye stared at her with a complicated expression before asking, "What drove you to record these scenes anyway?" Actually, I recorded the first projection completely on a whim. At the time, everyone was saying that the Crimson Crack might very well concern the fate of the entire God realm. So I thought I might as well keep a record of the historical moment. I wasn't expecting Senior Devil Emperor to return at that exact moment. After you successfully changed Senior Devil Emperor's mind, every God Emperor and Realm King praised you as the God Child Messiah. But for some reason, I couldn't shake off a sense of unease from my soul every time I saw you, so I thought that it would be wise to keep a record of everything that had happened. And it looks like my decision was right. Qianye had acted not out of cunning, but out of a vague sense of unease. She did everything just to protect Qianye. Qianye felt a warmth surging in his heart. He might have fallen into bottomless darkness, but at least he still had a rope of warm light to cling onto. It had been too long since he thanked someone, but a delicate hand covered his lips before the words could come out of his mouth. Qianye shook her head at him and said, "You are my fiancé, and it's only natural that I protect my future husband, big brother Qianye. I don't want your thanks." Qianye smiled and caressed her cheeks. "All right, I won't be thanking you then." He moved on to the next topic. "Were you imprisoned in Moon God Realm all these years?" "Amen," Qianye nodded. King shut me in the lowest floor of the Moon Prison, but the truth is she couldn't keep me in at all. The only reason I continued to stay there until recently was because I wanted to protect Daddy, Big Sis, and the Glazed Light Realm. Qianye raised an eyebrow. Qianye continued. "I thought that Big Brother Qianye might be returning very soon after learning that the Northern Divine Region was acting strangely, so I chose that time to leave the Moon God Realm. I'm glad that I was able to pass this illusory glaze imagery jade into your hands in time." King, you couldn't keep you in at all? Why's that?" Qianye asked. "It's a secret. I'll tell you about it, and another big pleasant surprise in the future, hee-hee," she said with a beaming smile. Qianye didn't press her for an answer. He simply smiled and said, "Good. By the way, the person who hurt your father and imprisoned you, King, is dead now. I've also blown Moon God Realm to bits, so you don't have to worry about them any longer." The sparkle in her eyes suddenly froze. Her lips parted slightly as she whispered, "She's dead." "Amen," Qianye replied. "She died at the abyss of nothingness. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to kill her with my own hands because she saved her last bit of strength to jump into the abyss of nothingness." What's wrong?" For some reason, tears suddenly slid down Qianye Fantian's cheeks again. She hurriedly wiped them away before showing him a smile again. "That's wonderful news. She's finally dead. She did that to you and Daddy. She's the worst, absolute worst person in the entire world. She's finally..." Qianye Fantian suddenly buried her face into Qianye's chest again. Her shoulders shook violently as she tried to suppress her sobs. Qianye held her shoulders gently and felt his shirt turning wet again. Slightly amused by her reaction, he said, "Why are you crying again?" He barely stopped himself from adding, "You're over 3,000 years old and you're still acting like a kid." Meanwhile, Qianye Fantian shook her head strongly before saying in a broken voice, I'm just glad that you're back, glad that Qianye is dead. I'm so happy, so happy," sob. On the other side, Qianye stared at Qianye Fantian's back with an indiscernible frown on her face. A long while later, Qianye Fantian finally calmed herself down before sweeping a ferocious glance at the people around her. "Big brother Qianye is my fiancé, so it's my right to cry as much as I want. Don't you dare laugh at me, you hear me?" "Oh, of course not." Fantian hurriedly lowered his head. "Ha ha ha ha!" Qianye Fantian laughed heartily without a care for his daughter's threat. Qianye Ying'er. Letter 2C9 Macron. Now that Fantian had turned off her waterworks, Qianye asked another question. "Fantian, why did the heaven-smiting devil emperor want to see you alone?" Just like Qianye Ying'er, he was confused by the fourth projection. At the very least, the heaven-smiting devil emperor had never mentioned Qianye Fantian in his company. "Senior devil emperor knew that I was recording everything from the start," Qianye Fantian replied. No one was surprised by this. The illusory glazed imagery jade was an extremely high-level profound imagery stone that could fool even the senses of a god emperor. But there was no way it was enough to fool someone like the heaven-smiting devil emperor. After making up her mind to leave the primal chaos, the one thing that worried her more than anything else was the possibility that you might be betrayed. So, she entrusted me with a very important object that only I, the owner of the divine stainless soul, could use. She wanted me to help you if something bad did happen in the future. "What is it?" Qianye asked, "an object that only the owner of a divine stainless soul could use." Qianye Fantian shook her head and smiled mysteriously. "I can't tell you that right now. Big brother Qianye." Before Qianye could press her for details, she stared him in the eye and said seriously, "I don't want something like this to happen ever again. So can you please become the ruler of the primal chaos and the rule maker of this world? You are the successor of the heretic god and senior devil emperor. You can do it. You are the only one who has the right to do it. When that day comes, I promise I'll tell you all my secrets, okay?" Qianye Fantian's words sounded familiar to Qianye for some reason. Someone had probably mentioned it to him at some point in time. He smiled warmly again, but this time there was a dark chill behind it. "Yes, I will become the rule maker. I haven't just returned for revenge after all." Qianye Fantian nodded strongly. There were still tears in her eyes, but her smile was incredibly bright. Not only was Qianye safe, he was far stronger than she had thought he would be. He now commanded the entire northern divine region, and the condition of his soul was far better than she initially imagined. Two things had plagued her mind before she met Qianye again. The first one was the possibility that Qianye would succumb to darkness and throw away his humanity completely for vengeance. The second one was the possibility that his desire to commit suicide might be as great as his desire for revenge. Neither of her fears came true. Qianye hadn't just been trying to console her after all. His soul and willpower were also much stronger than before. "What are these secrets? Why can't you tell us now?" Qianye Ying'er suddenly interrupted again. "Childish woman, do you all enjoy stringing your man around with secrets and other such lowly tactics?" "Shut up," Qianye rebuked her. When everyone was trying to hunt him down, the glazed light realm and Qianye Fantian were the only ones who took the giant risk of hiding him and protecting him. When he returned and brought a dark calamity upon the eastern divine region, he thought that he wouldn't be entirely surprised if Qianye Fantian decided to turn against him. It was her natural right as a denizen of the eastern divine region after all. But she defied his expectations again by preparing a secret weapon long before he might need it, and using it at the best possible time. Thanks to her, the entire god realm now knew that his cause was justified, and countless profound practitioners were disillusioned by their cause. He had never given anything Qianye Fantian deserved. He hadn't even given her the basic reciprocation one would expect from a romantic relationship. Because their engagement was an artificial thing forced onto him by Qianye. She had been away from him for 3,000 years when she cultivated in the eternal heaven-divine realm. He had also changed from a gentle man to a brutal devil after his downfall, but she still gave him everything she had. Her obsession with him might seem foolish, ridiculous, and unreasonable to another person, but he knew how lucky he was to have a woman like her. It was like having a star that would eternally shine for him and only him. Having gone through absolute darkness and despair in his life, his appreciation for the girl before him was positively overflowing. HMPH! Qianye Ying'er turned her back on them and looked away. Qianye blinked her starry eyes once. It looked like Qianye wasn't the only one who had changed drastically. No, even more so, over the past few years. Big brother Qianye, I'm really hiding this for a very important reason. Please believe me, okay? She explained briefly before smiling. Still, Senior Devil Emperor treated you super well, you know that. She did so many things for you in secret before she left. Amen. Qianye nodded. It wasn't like she had a choice, in a sense. Both her daughters were in his hands after all. The heretic god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor truly were the greatest god and devil in the world. Unfortunately, the world wasn't worthy of them. As promised earlier, he didn't press Qianye for an answer. This time he turned to look at Qianye and asked, "By the way, why are the two of you together?" "Why not?" Qianye countered. "Little Mayyin and I are old acquaintances, you know." "Old acquaintances?" Qianye frowned a little until he recalled the strange look Qianye gave Qianye when she first arrived at the Snow Song realm. "She noticed me immediately after she saw us," Qianye said slowly. "Luckily, she didn't expose me. After that, I decided that the two of you should be engaged to each other. After all," her lips curled into a playful smile, "it would be a shame to give away a girl this beautiful yet frightening to someone else, don't you think?" At number %. Meanwhile, the Moon Eaters who were guarding the area couldn't stop their eyes from twitching or their scalps from tingling. They felt like they should be anywhere but here, and yet it didn't feel right to leave either. At any rate, the Devil Master and Devil Queen's circle was, bizarre to say the least. Qianye was smiling, but she was really hiding a deep doubt in her mind. The divine stainless soul could sense her Nirvana devil soul. Therefore, to a degree, she could sense Qianye's divine stainless soul too. That was why she was confused by the fluctuations in Qianye's soul when she was explaining things to Qianye. She couldn't even imagine what kind of emotion it took to cause a fluctuation like this. Just what was she hiding? Why was there a need to hide it in the first place? Ahem. After spending a long time to gather his thoughts, Qianye let out a small cough and started, "Devil Master, we came today not only because we wish to see you again, but also to make a request." Qianye looked at him and said mildly, "I haven't forgotten your favor to me, Senior Qianye. You may ask me anything you want, except forgiveness on behalf of the Eastern Divine Region." Qianye's expression froze slightly. Qianye Ying'er overtook her father and said evenly, "The Glazed Light Realm is definitely not asking you to forgive the Eastern Divine Region, Devil Master. What we want is for you to give them a chance." "A chance, you say?" The corner of Qianye's lips curled upward. His gentle voice suddenly turned cold and harsh. "Did anyone give me a chance back then?" He turned around and looked away from Qianye Ying'er. "The Glazed Light Realm won't be affected no matter what happens to the Eastern Divine Region in the future. I will also repay the favor I owe you several times over. But if a second chance for the Eastern Divine Region is what you want..." "Heh!" He let out a cold chuckle before continuing, "I'm sorry to say that your favor to me isn't enough to make me forget my dead family." His answer was clear-cut and absolute. Before Qianye and Qianye Ying'er could say anything else, Qianye suddenly looked to the side and said, "Are you here to plead for leniency as well, honored guests of the Shrouding Sky Realm?" A short silence later, two more figures flew down the Soul Sky warship and stopped in front of Qianye. It was none other than the Shrouding Sky Realm King, Lu Zhou, and his son, Lu Lengquan. The Shrouding Sky Realm wasn't affected by the war, and it wasn't because it was one of the three strongest upper star realms besides the King realms. It was because he still remembered what Lu Zhou said at the edge of the primal chaos, despite the massive pressure he had to bear at the time. When it was softly spoken, but he still heard it clearly even though he was on the verge of being overwhelmed by his anger. Lu Zhou of the Shrouding Sky Realm greets the Devil Master of the North. Both father and son bowed respectfully toward Qianye. Qianye turned around to face them. The gesture alone meant that he accepted the bow. "You are one of the few people who defended me when everyone else turned against me," realm King Lu and brother Lu, and I shared a small friendship with each other. If you are here as guests, then my doors will always be open to you. But again, if you are here to plea on behalf of the Eastern Divine Region, then don't blame me for throwing you out." Lu Zhou looked up in astonishment. He didn't think that Qianye had heard his angry mutter back then, much less remember it to this day. It showed just how much he valued kindness and relationships. Lu Lengquan's gaze also became a lot more complicated. On the conferred god stage, he had willingly surrendered victory to Qianye despite holding a great advantage at the end of that epic battle. He had become a divine master after cultivating 3,000 years in the eternal Heaven-Divine realm. But Qianye had also become the terrifying devil master of the northern divine region, without having enjoyed the same privilege as him. Who would have thought that his battle against Qianye would become the most glorious moment of his life? "No, you are mistaken, devil master," Lu Zhou said. "We are here to accept the glazed Light Realm King's invitation to join you." "Oh." Qianye looked directly into Lu Zhou's eyes, but couldn't find any falsehood or pretense in them at all. "Heh," Qianye let out a chuckle. "Are my ears playing tricks on me? Did the Realm King of one of the 3 greatest upper star realms of the Eastern Divine Region just ask to join me, the monster who ravaged your divine region? Did you happen to forget that the blood we spilled across the world, or the fact that we are the bearers of darkness profound energy, the power that is rejected by the world?" Lu Zhou remained calm despite staring Qianye directly in the eye. He replied, "It is true that blood has been spilled across the Eastern Divine Region, but it is the blood that washes away the stain in our beliefs and our souls. The rule maker is the one who gets to decide if darkness profound energy is accepted by the world or not the illusory heavenly law," he declared passionately. "If the devil master becomes the new master and rule maker of the god realm, then one word from you, and darkness profound energy would no longer be a sin, but the greatest honor one could possess." "Qianye. You, devil master Qianye?" Lu Zhou's eyes grew more and more determined. He wasn't one to hesitate or go back on his decision once he had made up his mind. "Are the future master of the god realm we choose to follow?" Qianye frowned slightly. "Aren't you afraid that I would just drag you down to the eternal depths of the abyss? You can't lead a life without making choices, and I never regret the choices I make," Lu Zhou said. "Besides, we aren't doing this completely out of self-interest. It is to atone for our sins and repay the favor we owe as well." Qianye looked to Shui Qianheng and Qianye Ying'er. "Is this the choice of the glazed light realm too?" "That's right," Qianye Ying'er replied. "Not only was the truth revealed through the eternal heaven projection, this is the first time the world's perception of darkness was truly shaken to the roots, so I don't think that they'll be too surprised by our choices. In fact, I'm sure that there are a lot of realm kings and star realms who share the same thoughts as us." "Ha ha ha ha!" Qianye suddenly laughed loudly. "As expected of the glazed light realm king and the shrouding sky realm king, even the way you plead is much better than what most people can come up with. Unfortunately, anyone I want dead will still die even if they break their knees and crack their skulls in front of me." Qianye Ying'er and Lu Zhou held their breath at the same time. "Big brother Qianye," Qianye Fantian whispered quietly. Qianye suddenly turned toward Qianye and asked, "You are the one who fetched them over with the soul sky warship. Does that mean that you agree with their plea as well?" "Of course," Qianye replied unhesitatingly with a half-smile on her face. Qianye stared at her and waited. He knew that Qianye would give him an answer that would satisfy him, especially because she understood the depths of his hatred more than anyone else. "The rule maker decides the rules, and those who serve can either choose to obey or be punished or even killed. There is no other way. Therefore," Qianye's words were bloodthirsty and murderous, "all the king realms who were part of that betrayal deserve to be destroyed or even massacred to the last. But not those below the king realms. I believe they should have a second chance." Qianye smiled. "After all, we still have the southern divine region and the western divine region to conquer. We need corpses and dogs to pave the path to victory, do we not?" She was helping them and pleading on behalf of the eastern divine region, and yet her words only caused Shui Qianheng, Qianye Ying'er, Lu Zhou, and Lu Lengquan's bodies to turn ice cold. Qianye suddenly fell silent. His memories traveled back to the time he was still in the illusory demon realm. Back then, after the little demon empress obtained the golden crow divine power and regained control of the illusory demon realm, she had executed Duke Hui, his family, and all of his relatives. However, Duke Hai was hardly the only one who was involved in the revolt. At least 60% of the royal family, and the 12 guardian families had joined Duke Huai's faction during the unrest that had affected the illusory demon realm for 100 years at minimum. The punishment for treason was 9 familial exterminations. If she had done that, the illusory demon realm would weaken considerably and fall into a prolonged state of unrest. Not only would it take countless years to recover, many top-tier inheritances might vanish into the annals of history forever. If they forgave them, she wouldn't be able to face the dead demon emperor and the little demon emperor, or the guardian families and illusory demon royal family who were made to bleed for their loyalty. In the end, she came to a decision, and Qianye was a witness of that from start to finish. "You are right," Qianye said slowly after a long silence. He sounded like he was talking to himself or announcing a final verdict. "I should give the Eastern Divine Region another chance." His smile spread wider with every word he spoke. When he was done, the smile on his face wasn't the smile of a benevolent ruler, but that of a terrifying tyrant. 1. Cute Alishu Note, 1522. The chill Qianye sent crawling over their skins was in no way less than Kai Wai's, but Qianye Ying'er and Lu Zhou knew that it was still one of the better outcomes. In the end, they were the denizens and the realm kings of the Eastern Divine Region. Qianye was the one who had saved the Eastern Divine Region, and the Eastern Divine Region was the one who betrayed him. Taking the fate of the world into consideration, Qianye had every right to enact whatever revenge he wanted on his betrayers. However, it was also a fact that most of the people living in the Eastern Divine Region were innocent. Trapped by the cage and rules enacted by their own rulers, they never really knew what happened until it was too late. The glazed light realm and shrouding sky realm were some of the few realms who were safe from the devilish calamity. But the eternal heaven realm was massacred. The moon god realm was annihilated. The star god realm was holed up in their auxiliary star realm, and the Brahma monarch realm had closed its own borders. Their king realms were either annihilated or useless, so it was up to them to improve things for the Eastern Divine Region, if even a little. Otherwise, it was unknown what kind of hell the Eastern Divine Region would turn into if those terrifying and fearless devil people were allowed to vent their infinite hatred to their heart's content. Lu Lengchuan bowed and thanked Qianye sincerely. "Thank you for granting the Eastern Divine Region another chance, Devil Master. When we return to our realms, we will immediately declare in the name of the glazed light realm and shrouding sky realm that those who submit to you will receive your pardon, and those who don't will be treated as your enemies." They knew full well that they would be accused as treason, since they hadn't been affected by the war, and because their judgment wasn't clouded by the haze of loss. They knew better than anyone that there was no chance the Eastern Divine Region could resist the Northern Divine Region, not after the Eternal Heaven Realm and Moon God Realm were gone, and the truth was announced to the world. This was the best, no, the only choice they had if they wished to retain as much of the Eastern Divine Region as possible. "Heh, there is no need." Qianye smiled and summoned the primordial profound arc all of a sudden. Then he dragged someone out of the vessel. Bang! The ice encasing the person fell apart as they crashed heavily against the ground and rolled into the distance. But instead of getting back on their feet, they chose to curl into a ball and shiver uncontrollably. Everyone was surprised when they saw the person's face. Then Lu Zhou and Qianye Fantian shouted in unison, "Star God Emperor!" The middle-aged man on the ground turned around blankly and saw Lu Zhou and Qianye Fantian looking back at him. Then he let out a strange cry, buried his face against the floor, and wrapped his arms around his head. He writhed like a despairing worm as he said, "No, no, I'm not the Star God Emperor. I'm not. You got the wrong person. I'm not. Once upon a time, he was a powerful and dignified God Emperor that even the likes of Qianye Fantian and Lu Zhou, powerful higher realm kings in their own right, had to bow to and respect. Today, his shameful appearance was exposed before countless eyes and even a couple of acquaintances. He would rather be frozen forever than to be seen like this. That way, the people would have remembered him as the vanished Star God Emperor, the God Emperor who once commanded star gods and wielded great power, not the sniveling mess he was now. What the? Lu Zhou and Lu Lengchuan exchanged a look of utter shock. The Star God Emperor had suddenly disappeared when the Star God realm was turned to rubble by the evil infant. After that, no matter how hard the surviving Star God realm profound practitioners looked, scouring nearly every inch of the Eastern Divine Region, they weren't able to find a trace of their God Emperor. The people had countless rumors and guesses regarding the vanished Star God Emperor. No one, least of all them, was expecting him to show up like this at this time and place. Right now, Xing looked nothing like the star god emperor he used to be. They could barely sense any profound aura from his body at all, much less imperial might or spiritual pressure. After being crippled and encased in ice for years, his willpower had long since been ground to dust, and some more. There was only brokenness and despair in his eyes. Even the lowliest mortal would feel deep disdain and pity for him if they saw him. It took time to break the star god emperor to this extent, meaning that his torture had probably begun the very day he disappeared without warning. But of course, they dared not ask Qianye about it. Qianye hadn't killed Xing even though he hated him to the bone. In fact, he had been keeping him alive since the day he found him. He didn't think that his unintentional act of charity would prove useful one day. He glanced at Xing from the corner of his eyes before tossing the star god wheel in front of the latter. Although Xing was just a normal person now, he had had the star god wheel for 10,000 years at least. He could practically sniff out the wheel if they were put in the same room. The weak old man abruptly looked up for his spot and stared at the star god wheel for a second. Somehow, he found the strength to leap into the air like a flea and hug the star god wheel tightly in his chest. Tears poured down his cheeks like a pair of waterfalls. Luo Zhou, Shui Qianye and everyone watched while indescribable emotions surged inside their hearts. Heh! Qianye's eyebrows sank as he said deeply, Xing, I will grant you one more chance to become the star god emperor. Savor it well. Xing didn't respond. It was almost as if he couldn't hear him at all. The old man was clutching the star god wheel with all his power, and for a moment he almost felt like the almighty star god emperor again. Qianye let out a sneer before walking toward the front. He ordered, Dayaki, turn on the formation. The projection formation that had proven itself to be incredibly useful again and again came active once more. Although it took an incredible amount of energy to sustain it, they were expending the eternal heaven realm's resources. There was no reason to be distressed about the cost at all. The great projection formation quickly came to life, and Qianye's dark features and devilish power quickly enveloped the entire Eastern Divine region once more. Every devil person in the Eastern Divine region, the god emperors all the way down to the lowest devil soldiers, dropped to their knees in unison. Their near-insane display of faith causing the Eastern Divine region profound practitioners to quake in their boots. This time, though, they couldn't help but see Qianye in a different light. He was a devil, there was no denying that. But it was the rulers of the Eastern Divine region, no, the entire god realm who made him what he was. He was supposed to be the god-child Messiah. He was supposed to be their biggest pride in the history of the Eastern Divine region. Children of darkness, Qianye said slowly in a low tone, please cool the heat in your blood for a moment, for I have an important announcement to share with the pitiful worms of the Eastern Divine region. Pitiful worms, please listen carefully and do not miss a word. You will regret it otherwise. Only gulps could be heard amidst the oppressive silence. Qianye slowly raised his hand and stretched his fingers as if he had the entire Eastern Divine region in his palm. The eternal Heaven God Realm and Moon God Realm are gone, and the Brahma Monarch God Realm and Star God Realm are shaking inside their turtle shells. Do not think for a second that you've been abandoned, because you don't even have the qualification to be abandoned in the face of the true calamity. Oh no, you are just pitiful worms that can be twisted into any shape and form by them. Qianye's speech was full of sarcasm. It was especially biting now that they all knew the truth. But I owe the Snow Song Realm a great debt, and the representatives of the Glazed Light Realm and Shrouding Sky Realm have come personally to plead on your behalf. The Glazed Light Realm hid me, and the Shrouding Sky Realm defended me in my direst moment, so I will grant you one, and only one chance to save yourselves. Shui Qianye was still calm, but the Lu father and son could barely control their emotions. If the Eastern Divine region really was saved, if Qianye really became the next master of the God realm, then everything he said today would increase their already sterling reputation and status to a whole new level. Who would have thought that a brutal man like him would value kindness and relationships to such an extent? Joy wasn't the only emotion they felt, of course. They also felt sorrow. If the Eastern Divine region had chosen to protect him instead of betraying him, their king realms wouldn't have crumbled, and their people wouldn't be slaughtered like dogs. They would have had unshakable peace and protection. That being said, if Qianye was still his old self, if all he wanted was to live together with the evil infant in the lower realms, he would never have grown so much so quickly. Qianye withdrew his fingers slightly, and countless Eastern region profound practitioners felt that their lives and souls were caught in his grasp. In 7 days, all upper star realms are required to send their realm kings before me. They will kneel and swear their undying loyalty to me, or they can vanish forever in darkness. The Devil Master's words caused countless eyeballs and hearts to beat wildly. Remember, you only have 7 days, 7 days. This is the first and last chance I'll grant the likes of you. If your realm king insists on dragging you all to darkness, you can follow them to your deaths, or you can kill them and appoint a new realm king. Will you join us in darkness, or will you turn into black dust? I very much look forward to your decision. Hey. Qianye turned away and left after leaving behind a devilish ultimatum and a cold chuckle. Countless seeds of darkness were buried in the wavering souls of the Eastern region profound practitioners there and then. We obey the Devil Master's order. Withdraw. The Devil Army was already backing away as one, while the Eastern region profound practitioners were still in a daze. Even the armies who were one step away from hitting the core of the enemy's base had withdrawn without any hesitation whatsoever. If it wasn't for Qianye, they wouldn't even have the power to step out of the northern divine region, much less vent their hatred to their heart's content. Qianye's order had become their highest faith since a while ago, so the devil people went away like tide water, leaving behind the Eastern region profound practitioners and the dark ultimatum of the Devil Master. The terrible disaster that dyed even the sky red had finally come to a pause, but no one could tell if a blessing or an even darker hell was awaiting them at the front. No, we mustn't fall for the devil people's trick, an Eastern region profound practitioner shouted. They are clearly trying to divide our strength and enslave us. If this was 2 days ago, most of them would have fought to the death to defend their last bit of pride and honor. They would have died before they submitted to darkness. After learning the cruel truth and losing their faith, the offer looked more like hope and a chance to survive. The Devil Emperor sacrificed herself to save the world. The Devil Master saved the world only to be betrayed by it. If the very idea that darkness couldn't be allowed to exist in this world was wrong, then their million-year-long oppression and slaughtering of the devil people was a sin as well. Knowing that, was it really that unacceptable to live with darkness, to submit to the man who once saved the world? At the very least, they would be able to save themselves and their family. At the very least, this calamity would end here and now, and they would have the opportunity to atone for their sins and correct their misguided perception. I don't want to fight the devil people anymore, a profound practitioner said weakly as he collapsed to his knees. The pale, lifeless statement was shared by countless other Eastern region profound practitioners. Great Realm King, let's surrender already. The devil people are too powerful, and we are no match for them at all. Besides, Qianye was a member of the Eastern Divine Region. Sect Master, why are we even still struggling after knowing the truth? I don't want to fight anymore, I really don't. They are devil people. Did you already forget how many of your brothers and kin were killed by them? Are you just going to watch and do nothing while the Eastern Divine Region turns into a devil region? A higher realm king roared on top of his lungs. He was cut off by a miserable laugh. It came from their most talented, profound practitioner. Sect Master, that future will only come true if we are all dead. I would rather live and see what a devil person is really like. Great Realm King, you absolutely cannot submit to the devil people. How are we supposed to face our ancestors if they knew what we've done? And don't forget, there is still the Brahma Monarch God Realm. There's no way they are turtling, as the Devil Master says. They may even be plotting with the Southern Divine Region and the Western Divine Region in secret to deal a decisive blow. If we surrender now, it'll become an irremovable stain in our history forever. Countless voices filled the Eastern Divine Region for a time. It was because the final fate of their star realms would be decided in just 7 days. Author's note, Wu Gaik, yay, I showed up again. I'll issue note, his name is a homophone of turtle shell in Chinese Mandarin. The projection was still ongoing. At the eternal heaven realm, Qianye extended his hand and launched a ball of light profound energy to Ling Jukong. The latter immediately felt a surge of powerful life energy coursing around his weak body. He looked up at Qianye in astonishment. Even his murky, pitiful eyes had become unusually spirited. Qianye shot Kai Wao a look, but it was unnecessary. His queen would have understood his intention even without it. The corner of her lips curling slightly, a dark gleam suddenly flashed across her eyes. Right now, Ling Jukong was a complete cripple, be it physically or psychologically. Therefore, Qianie's dark soul energy had penetrated his soul without any resistance whatsoever. A dark light settled in Xing Jukong's eyes, and his features suddenly turned cold and imposing. He gripped the star god wheel and rose to his feet. He still had no profound energy whatsoever, but he had been an emperor for 10 millennia at the minimum. Shui Qianheng and Lu Zhou actually felt just a tiny bit of pressure from him when they met his eyes. Solemnly, Xing Jukong entered the range of the projection and shocked everyone in the Eastern Divine region. The Star God Emperor? At the Star God Realm's auxiliary star realm, the 6 star gods, Heavenly Jade, Heavenly Demon, Heavenly Sun, Heavenly Flame, and Heavenly Charm, shot to their feet in unison. God Emperor? This was the first time Xing Jukong had shown himself to the world after he disappeared. Neither the star gods nor the Eastern region profound practitioners could understand why he had appeared by Yuan Qi's side. The star gods were both shocked and excited, especially after they saw the star god wheel in his hands. It was because the star god wheel was the lifeline of star god realm's inheritance. As long as the star god wheel existed, the star god realm might falter, but never fade into the annals of history. Thump! The masses were still reeling from Xing Jukong's appearance, but he then did something no one had ever expected to see from him, dropping to his right knees next to Yuan Qi. He raised the core and lifeline of the star god realm, the star god wheel into the air, and declared solemnly, "The Devil Master is the savior of the world, and by extension this little King Xing Jukong. Therefore, in the name of the Star God Emperor, I and the Star God Realm have decided to swear fealty to the Devil Master as thanks for his gift of forgiveness. From here on, the Star God Realm will serve the Devil Master as his servants now and forever. Anyone who defies his will is the enemy of the Star God Realm. If we ever defy this oath, may the world smite us where we stand." His oath was completely free from pretense or reluctance. He was kneeling, but the words clearly came from the very depths of his soul. The Eastern Divine Region Realm kings and profound practitioners were stunned again. The Star Gods and the Star God Elders especially couldn't say anything for a very long time. Although Star God Realm had fallen from grace completely after the evil infant disaster, and it had been a long time since Xing Jukong had shown his face, the man was still the Star God Emperor. They couldn't even deny his right because he was holding the lifeline of all star gods in his hands. The Star God Realm was nowhere as strong as it used to be, but it still had 6 star gods and 17 star god elders. No star realm beneath the king realms was its equal. This was especially true after the eternal heaven realm and moon god realm were destroyed by the devils. Before they knew it, only 2 king realms were still standing in the Eastern Divine Region, and now one of them had just sworn fealty to Devil Master Yuan Qi before everyone's eyes. This was undoubtedly another huge blow to the profound practitioners of Eastern Divine Region. It cruelly ate up whatever hope and determination they still had. "Big sis!" Heavenly Demon Star God Rose turned to Heavenly Jade Star God Aster for guidance. The rest of the star gods were looking to her as well. After the Star God Emperor mysteriously vanished, Moonflower and Shenhu were killed, and Jasmine and Qianye were. Aster became the strongest and most well-reputed star god in the group. Naturally, she was temporarily appointed as the leader of the star gods. She slowly rose to her feet and stared at the star god wheel in Xing Jukong's hands. She noticed that the starlight representing the heavenly poison divine power, heavenly origin divine power, heavenly strength divine power, and heavenly slaughter divine power were missing. The heavenly slaughter star god's divine power was missing probably because the evil infant Jasmine was annihilated by the devil gods after she was struck out of the primal chaos. Even if she somehow survived the ordeal, she was blocked by the walls of the primal chaos. There was no way her origin power could return to the star god wheel one way or another. But why were the heavenly origin, heavenly poison, and heavenly strength's divine power missing as well? Had they been passed down to their new successors already? However, it was no time to think about this. She looked into the distance as a whirring jumble of thoughts raced inside her mind. In the end, she recalled the day Yuan Qi died for Jasmine in the star god realm and murmured, "It is time to make a decision." In the eternal heaven realm, Shui Qianheng and Lu Zhou were staring in Xing Jukong in shock and fear. When they looked at Qianye again, they couldn't help but feel a chill rising to their heads from the very bottoms of their feet. Every hair on their bodies was standing on end. Xing Jukong retreated from the area being projected to the world after swearing his oath, and the black gleam in his eyes vanished all of a sudden. Then, he collapsed to the ground and stopped moving completely. Qianye extended his hand, the star god wheel flying back to him and vanishing into his hand. He resealed Xing, Jukong in a block of ice before throwing him back into the primordial profound arc, while the star god emperor's unexpected oath of fealty was still reverberating in the people's souls. Shrouding Sky Realm King Lu Zhou and his son, Lu Lengquan, quickly entered the projection. Speaking of which, the latter's fame was almost equal to his father's recently. Devil Master, the Eastern Divine Region was undoubtedly to be blamed for this disaster, but most of its denizens didn't deserve to suffer for a crime they didn't commit. They were just victims who were manipulated by the people who wronged you. Lu Zhou was addressing Qianye, but he really was talking to the profound practitioners of the Eastern Divine Region. If we and the Northern Divine Region continue to tear into each other like this, all that will bring is endless strife and death. So I ask that you grant the Eastern Divine Region a chance to refresh our knowledge of darkness once more, or even just a chance to atone for our sins, Devil Master. It hurt to hear words such as atone and sins being used, but it was only natural for the loser to submit to the whims of the winner, not to mention that this was a plea for mercy, not a negotiation. Lu Zhou was begging for a chance to survive on behalf of the entire Eastern Divine Region. I, Lu Zhou, the Shrouding Sky Realm King, and the realm I rule will be joining the Devil Master. I am certain that the enlightened people of the Eastern Divine Region will choose to resolve their grudge with the Northern Divine Region and truly live in peace with the dark, profound practitioners one day. He definitely deserved to be called one of the 3 greatest realm kings of the Eastern Divine Region. His speech was both stunning and infectious. Qianye Ying'er also walked into the projection. Since Lu Zhou had said everything that needs to be said, she simply bowed and said, "Glazed Light Realm will serve the Devil Master loyally." The Star God Emperor aside, no one thought that 2 of the 3 star realms that could represent the will of the Eastern Divine Region beside the King realms would swear fealty to the Devil Master as well. Even the fiercest Eastern Region profound practitioners were starting to lose sight of a reason to continue fighting. I have granted the Eastern Divine Region a chance, Qianye said in a low tone with his back facing toward the audience. How many star realms will disappear forever into darkness 7 days from now, I wonder? I am very much looking forward to the answer. The Eternal Heaven projection finally shut down, and the Eastern Divine Region fell into an oppressive silence once more. The Star God Emperor, Glazed Light Realm, and Shrouding Sky Realm had submitted to Qianye. Their example was sure to compel countless upper star realms into surrendering as well. The resistance of the Eastern Divine Region was sure to decrease day by day. When 7 days were up, even the act of resisting would be seen by everyone as foolishness. That being said, the Eastern Divine Region hadn't given up hope completely. They were still hoping that the Brahma Monarch realm would surprise them with a miracle, or the greatest upper star realm of the Eastern Divine Region. The Holy Eve's realm would rally them under their banner and organize their final resistance. After the projection was closed, Qianye narrowed his eyes slightly before whispering, "Now that that is done, it is time to drop the final straw on the camel's back." It was at this moment 3 black lightning cut across the sky before landing in front of Qianye. It was Yan 1, Yan 2, and Yan 3. You're back surprisingly quick." Qianye side-eyed them for a moment. "Don't tell me you came back empty-handed." All 3 Yama ancestors shivered in unison. Yan 1 quickly bowed his head and said, "Master, we've searched nearly half of the entire Eastern Divine Region, but we weren't able to find even a single moon god." "Not even one?" Qianye frowned deeply before saying, "You're not telling me that every moon god had perished to the devil crystals of eternal darkness, are you?" I will return to the search immediately," Yan 2 stuttered. Forget defending himself, he was too afraid to even give an explanation. "Never mind." Qianye let out a cold chuckle. "If they are smart, they would have run as far away as their legs could take them. In that case, they might as well suffer a bit longer just like old dog Eternal Heaven." After that, he slowly turned his head and glanced in the direction of the Brahma Monarch God realm. "After all, I have an exciting show right now." Meanwhile, the last king realm bearing the hopes of all the Eastern Region profound practitioners were still rejecting all outsiders and drowning in a sea of despair unlike anything they had ever experienced. Cough, 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 poo. A jet of blood burst out of Qianye Fantian's mouth while he was coughing loudly. The hall was silent and poorly lit, but the blood splatter on the floor was glowing an eerie green. He raised his hands and stared at them. They had turned even whiter since 2 hours ago. He then looked up and glanced at his Brahma kings. Every single one of them was in pain and despair. For the past day or so, they had tried absolutely everything they could think of that might work on the poison. The best evil-repelling divine jade, a great poison-expelling formation, and even merging their powers and expelling the poison together. It was completely useless. All they managed to do was suppress the poison energy a little. They weren't able to dispel even a speck of the heaven-wounding, thought-severing poison. The tragedy from several years ago had repeated itself, but this time, it was happening to every living creature within the Brahma monarch capital. In this day and age, there was simply nothing a mortal could do to dispel the sky poison pearl's poison energy. All their power, cunning, and wealth was nothing but a useless joke in front of the heaven-wounding, thought-severing poison. "My lord, is there truly no other way?" The first Brahma king blurted out in pain. He couldn't remember how many times already he had asked this question. In fact, his eyes turned darker every time he spoke. "Heh!" Qianye Fantian chuckled grimly. "I wouldn't have given up Ying'er back then if it was curable, would I?" Back then, Qianye and Xianxia had to plan every step and bear a high risk just to inject a tiny amount of sky poison into his body. Today, Xianxia had poisoned him and all the Brahma kings without them even noticing until it was too late. The difference between the two incidents was night and day. That was why Qianye Fantian knew better than anyone that the sky poison pearl was the only thing in the world that could cure them. Carefully and gently circulating his profound energy to slow down the poison energy as best he could, he looked up and stared fixedly at nothing in particular. Even now, he was reluctant to beg Xianxia. He was still searching for a different possibility or an outcome where the Brahma monarch realm might survive this tribulation. While everyone in the capital was enduring the torture that was the heaven-wounding, thought-severing poison. No one noticed that a Brahma king was suppressing his pain and flying away from their realm in secret. He was heading to where the Southern Sea God Emperor was. Nan Wansheng was feeling disturbed as of late. When the Eastern Divine Region was invaded by the Northern Divine Region, he hadn't paid it too much attention. In fact, he saw it as the perfect opportunity to steal a certain object of eternal life. Even after the devil people appeared out of nowhere and massacred the eternal heaven realm, his danger sense was still mostly silent. He chose to use this tragedy to put extra pressure on the Brahma monarch realm instead. After the moon god realm was annihilated out of nowhere, after the war across the Eastern Divine Region turned into a landslide when the truth was announced without warning, even he had no choice but to look away from his greatest desire for a moment. The million-year-long perception the Eastern Divine Region had of the devil people of the Northern Divine Region had been the crux behind their downfall. Now, even the Southern Sea God Emperor himself was starting to think that he had been too naive. This was especially true after the truth was revealed, and he started hearing some undesirable news from the Southern Divine Region. It was at this moment the Southern Hell Sea King and the Western Hell Sea King walked over to him and said, "They are here, my king." Very soon, 6 people wearing light gold robes entered his dwelling and knelt before Nan Wansheng. Every single one of them was so powerful they could be mistaken for a living god. They were the sea gods. They were respected and feared by everyone in the Southern Sea Divine Region. The Southern Sea God realm was the strongest king realm of the Southern Divine Region. The Southern Sea God Emperor was served by the 4 kings of the sea gods, the Eastern Hell Sea King, the Western Hell Sea King, the Southern Hell Sea King, and the Northern Hell Sea King, and 16 sea gods. Today, the Southern Sea God Emperor himself, 2 sea kings, and 6 sea gods had gathered in the Eastern Divine Region for a certain purpose. Nan Wansheng rose to his feet and stared at the 6 sea gods who arrived at the perfect time. But not only did he not look happy, he ordered with a deeply concerned expression on his face, "We will be returning to the Southern Sea Realm right away." All 6 sea gods looked up in astonishment. They had rushed all the way here without sleep to carry out their ruler's will, and the first order he gave them after they arrived was to head home. The Southern Hell Sea King and the Western Hell Sea King didn't look too surprised, however. They had been here since the beginning, so they had heard everything that had happened in the Eastern Divine Region. "I was too naive," Nan Wansheng said solemnly. "I completely misjudged Xianxia and the Northern Divine Region." No one knew the Northern Divine Region's strength better than they, the God Emperors. Previously, Nan Wansheng thought that the Northern Divine Region was just venting their anger in a suicidal manner. He thought that they would be annihilated by the Eastern Divine Region for sure. despite being proven completely wrong later on. He still felt that the Eastern Divine Region wouldn't go down before dealing a massive blow to the Northern Divine Region. If they dared to attack the Southern Divine Region in that state, then he would happily oblige their suicidal wish and destroy them. If that was the only thing he was proven wrong about, it would have been fine. But every day, he had heard at least one piece of news that was beyond his expectations that frightened even him. From that moment, he knew that he had to revise his opinion of the Northern Divine Region, Xianxia, and the reason he was lured to the Brahma Monarch God realm. Eternal life was a lure that boiled his blood and maddened his soul, but there very well might be an endless abyss waiting for him beyond that lure. "Let's go," Nan Wansheng ordered decisively. Not only would he not underestimate the Northern Divine Region anymore, he would muster the core forces of the 4 king realms as fast as possible and attack them immediately after he returned to the Southern Divine Region. He would catch the Northern Divine Region off guard, just as they had caught the Eastern Divine Region off guard. Suddenly, they sensed an unusual aura swiftly approaching them. The Southern Hell Sea King glanced to the side and took off like a hawk. When he returned, he was accompanied by a new person, the 10th Brahma King of the Brahma Monarch realm, Qianye Ying'er. "Oh, you are the 10th Brahma King, aren't you?" The Southern Sea God Emperor shot the newcomer a look before narrowing his eyes. "Has your God Emperor finally come to his senses? Are you here to invite me for tea? Although you don't seem to be doing too well." That was hardly an adequate description of Qianye Ying'er's condition. Even a non-cultivator could see that his face was deathly pale, and his eyes were glowing an eerie green light. A Brahma King's aura should be as thick as a mountain, but Qianye Ying'er's was flimsy and in chaos. His skin was also writhing unnaturally as if he was enduring a tremendous amount of pain. Thump. Qianye Ying'er suddenly dropped to his knees and crawled toward the Southern Sea God Emperor. Everyone was shocked by his sudden display of humility. "Southern Sea God Emperor, save me! Save me!" Fear, desire, humility, he looked like a dying man who was trying to grasp onto a last straw of hope. Without knowing the person himself, no one would believe that this was coming from a Brahma King even if they saw and heard him with their own eyes. Nan Wansheng stared at Qianye Ying'er with pin-sized pupils. He was the strongest God Emperor of the Southern Divine Region, and he had the observation skills to match it. The fear and despair ravaging Qianye Ying'er didn't look fake in the slightest. On the contrary, it looked like he had been this way for a very long time. He suddenly stretched out and sent a wisp of energy toward Qianye Ying'er. The latter didn't resist in the slightest. Just as Nan Wansheng's consciousness was about to invade Qianye Ying'er's body, he suddenly stumbled backward in an almost comical manner. "My king!" Nan Wansheng's reaction shocked both the 2 sea kings and the 6 sea gods. Nan Wansheng stared fixedly at Qianye Ying'er before growling, "What is this poison?" He had sensed a terrifying devil that threatened to devour him forever just before his consciousness would enter Qianye Ying'er's body. It turned his blood ice cold and made him pull away before he even touched the poisonous aura. At the same time, he figured out the answer to his own question. There was only one possibility. Everyone in the God realm knew that the Southern Sea God realm possessed the deadliest devilish poison in the world, the absolute God-slaying poison. The poison afflicting Qianye Ying'er right now was far worse than the absolute God-slaying poison. It was so terrible that it could drive a powerful Brahma King to the depths of despair. It could only be the same poison that drove Qianye Fantian to a dead end years ago, the poison of the Sky Poison Pearl. "It's Xianxia. It's the Sky Poison Pearl," Qianye Ying'er shouted in a trembling voice. The reason he forewent even his pride was because Nan Wansheng was his last hope. In a sense, there was nothing more convincing than his shameful display of submission. The Brahma Heaven God Emperor, the Brahma Kings, the Elders, the Divine Envoys, everyone in the capital was poisoned by it. It was a huge shock to Nan Wansheng and his people. The Brahma Monarch capital, the core of the Brahma Monarch God realm, and even the Brahma Kings and the Brahma Heaven God Emperor himself were infected with the sky poison. If this was true, and if the sky poison was incurable by anything but the Sky Poison Pearl, did this mean that the Brahma Monarch God realm might be wiped off of the primal chaos? The Sea Kings and Sea Gods exchanged terrified glances with each other. King realms seldom warred against each other because any damage dealt to an opponent usually came at great cost to themselves, even if the grievance between 2 opposing king realms was as deep as the sea. No one except the completely insane would stake hundreds of thousands of years of accumulation on a war to the death. It was why plenty of king realms had risen to power. But none had ever been destroyed for the last 1,000,000 years or so. What the Devil Queen did to the Clear Sky God realm was basically the worst the king realms had ever seen. After Qianye bared his fangs at the world, the Eternal Heaven realm was massacred, the Moon God realm was annihilated, and the Brahma Monarch realm's core was currently suffering from an incurable poison. Scary was hardly an adequate adjective to describe these tragedies. The Southern Sea God Emperor stared at Qianye Ying'er coldly for a moment before sneering. The sky poison most likely can only be cured by the sky poison pearl, so why have you come to me instead of Qianye? No, Qianye Ying'er shouted hoarsely. Qianye is just a bloodthirsty devil right now. He cannot be trusted at all. He is a man who would break his oath to the Eternal Heaven Great Ancestor right in front of the entire world. He gave us a week to consider our options when he poisoned us, but knowing what happened to the Eternal Heaven realm, there's no way he'll cure even if we bend our knees for him. He would only use this opportunity to humiliate us to his heart's content. Heh, Nan Wansheng let out a chuckle. At least you haven't lost your mind yet. Southern Sea God Emperor, Qianye Ying'er crawled toward Nan Wansheng again. You are the only one who can save me now. The Southern Sea Divine Pearl is the greatest evil-banishing artifact in the current world, an artifact that could cure even the absolute God-slaying poison. Knowing that it might just be able to cure me of the sky poison as well. Even if it can't, it should be able to purify it to the extent it is manageable. Ridiculous, Nan Wansheng sneered disdainfully. Do you know how precious the spirit energy of the Southern Sea Divine Pearl is? Even if it could purify the sky poison, why would I ever use it on you? Qianye Ying'er said immediately. I could help you get. He paused for a moment to sweep the sea kings and sea gods a glance before lowering his voice. I could help you get what you want. Oh. The Southern Sea God Emperor narrowed his eyes and waited for Qianye Ying'er to continue. The 10th Brahma King explained, Everyone in the capital is poisoned right now, so if I open the barrier for you, you should be able to grab what you want with ease. I promise you that there's no way they can resist at all in their current state. Hee. The Southern Sea God Emperor chuckled quietly. 10th Brahma King, your acting skills are quite shoddy. Am I supposed to believe that a Brahma King of the strongest king realm of the Eastern Divine region is a man who would sell out their own master? Do you think me a fool? Instead of panicking, Qianye Ying'er looked the Southern Sea God Emperor directly in the eyes and said, Loyalty is important, but it shouldn't be more important than one's life. Right now, I'm just doing what an intelligent man would do to survive. If you still refuse to believe me, Qianye Ying'er gritted his teeth for a moment before saying, Feel free to read my most recent memories. I, Qianye Ying'er, will not resist. The Sea Kings, Sea Gods, and even the Southern Sea God Emperor himself looked stunned by the offer. It was always a bad idea to allow another person to inject their soul energy into your soul. If they wished you any harm at all, the consequences were unimaginable. There was no way Qianye Ying'er would allow this unless he truly had no other choice. Why not? Nan Wansheng had no reason to disagree, so he grabbed the top of Qianye Ying'er's head immediately. Qianye Ying'er gritted his teeth and trembled all over, but he didn't resist as he had promised earlier. He allowed Nan Wansheng's soul energy to enter right into his soul. A while later, Nan Wansheng removed his hand from the Brahma King's head. He wore a strange expression on his face. My king, the Western Hell Sea King took a step forward. He did not lie, Nan Wansheng muttered. Right now, the Brahma Monarch capital, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a hell where only despair exists. He was shocked, tempted, and absolutely terrified by what he gleaned when he said this. Had this sky poison erupted in the Southern Sea God realm, it could turn it into a poisonous hell in one night as well. 7 days, no, we have less than 6 days left, Qianye Ying'er said while struggling to keep awake. It was a strain that happened to anyone after their soul was invaded. When that happens, Qianye will appear and it will fall into his hands. Actually, I'd like to correct myself. The Brahma Heaven God Emperor might very well present it to Qianye very soon in order to survive. If you wish to obtain it, you better act as soon as you can. The Southern Sea God Emperor stared at Qianye Ying'er for a moment before breaking into a gentle smile. 10th Brahma King, you truly are the smartest person of all the Brahma Kings. The world would be a smarter place if only more people were able to figure out the situation quickly and make the best decisions in the shortest amount of time like you. He slowly opened his palm and revealed a shining golden pearl. Its purifying aura instantly enveloped the space they were in. It was the Southern Sea Divine Pearl. According to rumors, this ancient pearl possessed the strongest purifying energy in the world. It was also said that it could cure even the absolute god-slaying poison, although whether it was true remained to be seen. Qianye Ying'er looked up the second he smelled the Southern Sea Divine Pearl's purifying energy. His eyes positively glowed with desire as he stared at the pearl like a drowning man who saw his last straw of hope. "You will return to the Brahma monarch capital now and unlock the barrier right away." Although he had just searched Qianye Ying'er's memories, Nan Wansheng still acted with great caution. He wouldn't believe the man fully until he saw him unlocking the Brahma monarch capital's barrier with his own eyes. "Whether or not I am able to get what I want, I promise to purify the sky poison with the Southern Sea Divine Pearl once you have fulfilled your end to the promise. I am a man of my word, so you have nothing to be afraid of. Although," he smiled darkly, "it's not like you have another choice." Qianye Ying'er looked up determinedly and declared, "I do not look back or regret the decisions I make." He immediately spun around and flew toward the Brahma monarch god realm after saying that. "Follow him." The knowledge that the artifact of eternal life was suddenly just inches away from his grasp had extinguished his earlier decision to return completely. He, the 2 sea kings, and the 6 sea gods immediately took off after Qianye Ying'er. Xianxia was standing above the Brahma monarch capital, concealed. No one noticed him at all. A long time later, the powerful barrier enveloping the entire Brahma monarch capital suddenly turned off on its own. Only a person with the Brahma monarch divine power could do this. At the same time, the auras of the Southern Sea profound practitioners appeared in the distance. Qianye narrowed his eyes and smiled darkly. "A nest of poisoned dogs and a pack of greedy dogs. I wonder who will come out victorious in the end." The Southern Sea God Emperor wasn't sure if he should be glad or terrified when the barrier was unlocked, and he felt a dark, poisonous wind brushing against his face. "The sky poison pearl, the ultimate treasure of the ancients," the Southern Sea God Emperor muttered dazedly to himself. One day was all it needed to turn the strongest king realm in the Eastern Divine region, a power with almost 1,000,000 years of history, into a living hell. At the same time, his desire for the artifact of eternal life, a heavenly profound treasure that was rated even higher than the sky poison pearl, grew infinitely greater than before. At the center of the capital, Qianye Fantian opened his eyes. When the barrier was unlocked, Qianye Ying'er was the closest Brahma king to its core. "My lord!" All the Brahma kings looked at him gravely. Even now, the sky poison was growing more violent because of their shock. It was Ying'er. The first Brahma king's face turned green. "Why is he? Anything is possible when a person is driven to a dead end." The second Brahma king sighed deeply. Qianye Fantian slowly rose to his feet. Surprisingly, he looked calm and collected. "Prepare to fight." That was all he said before leaving the main hall for the sky. At a glance, the world beneath him had turned into a cold, greenish hell. 40 hours. 40 hours, and almost 70% of all life in the capital had died. Everyone who lived in the Brahma monarch capital either had a noble background, impressive cultivation, or the Brahma monarch bloodline running in their veins. But they were equally as small as ants before the sky poison. The divine kings and divine sovereigns were still dying one after another. The young disciples and the offspring of the Brahma monarch realm were dead a long time ago. The unending cries of despair filled every corner of the world and turned the greatest realm of the Eastern divine region into a living hell. If even the Brahma kings and Brahma heaven god emperor himself were suffering, how much worse was it for those who weren't even in the divine master realm? Qianye Fantian slowly closed his eyes. Not even he was so cold-hearted that he couldn't feel a stab of deep pain and sorrow in his heart. When he opened his eyes once more, he saw the Southern Sea God Emperor, the 2 sea kings, the 6 sea gods, and last but definitely not least, Qianye Ying'er. Ignoring Qianye Ying'er, Qianye Fantian adjusted his breathing before addressing the Southern Sea God Emperor. "What a pleasant surprise you've brought here. You didn't even bring this many people with you on the day I was crowned God Emperor." The Brahma kings were standing behind him, but each of their expressions was uglier than the next. They were all glaring at Qianye Ying'er with disappointment, hatred, and killing intent. Qianye Ying'er, on the other hand, looked calm and grim. Perhaps it really was, as he told Nan Wansheng earlier. Once he had made up his mind, he wouldn't regret his decision. The Southern Sea God Emperor smiled before looking down on purpose. "What is my pleasant surprise compared to Qianye's gift?" He then opened his palm and revealed the light gold light of the Southern Sea divine pearl. Speaking of which, are you sure you don't want to test out the artifact in my hands? Qianye Fantian replied grimly. There are idiots in this world who aren't aware of the limits of the Southern Sea divine pearl, but not me. You won't actually know until you try it out, no. Who knows, maybe a miracle might happen. The Southern Sea God Emperor smiled brightly. You should learn from your 10th Brahma King. He is an intelligent man who gives 10,000% for even 1% of hope. Heh. Qianye Fantian suddenly barked out an odd laugh. There are no traitors in the Brahma Kings. Have you forgotten, Southern Sea God Emperor? We have the Brahma Soul Bell. We can withdraw anyone's Brahma God divine power by force. The Southern Sea God Emperor frowned a little before looking at Qianye Ying'er. I am still a divine master even if you rob me of the Brahma God divine power, Qianye Ying'er uttered. But if I die, then I lose everything. Don't blame me for this, God Emperor. Blame yourself for not working together with the Southern Sea God Emperor sooner. The Brahma monarch realm wouldn't have suffered this tragedy otherwise. Qianye Ying'er's vehement protest chipped away at Nan Wansheng's suspicion bit by bit. Then he recalled what he saw in Qianye Ying'er's mind and felt easier. No one could forge another person's thoughts and memories, least of all a Brahma king. He then raised the Southern Sea divine pearl with one hand and extended his other hand toward Qianye Fantian. You know full well what I want, Brahma Heaven God Emperor. This may be the last chance in your life. Do not repeat your foolishness a second time. Southern Sea, Qianye Fantian said calmly. Have you wondered why Xianxia declared a 7-day time limit? Have you wondered why he hasn't attacked us yet even though we are this weak? Who do you think he was really waiting for? Oh, the Southern Sea God Emperor's eyebrows sank just a little. He's using eternal life as the bait and the sky poison as the catalyst to draw you into his trap. Are you going to tell me that you can't see through a ploy as simple as this? Qianye Fantian's eyes seemed colder than usual due to the eerie gleam of the poison. Who knows, Xianxia may even be hiding somewhere around the corner and waiting for us to kill each other right now. A certain person in hiding. Well said. The Southern Sea God Emperor agreed completely with his words, but his only response was to stretch his hand even further. I am glad that you've thought this through already. That will certainly save me some breath. Give me what I want, and I promise to give you the Southern Sea divine pearl. We'll both have what we need, and we won't have to hurt each other. It is the perfect arrangement, isn't it? I know that you've already weighed your options. You should know that this is your best and only choice. The Southern Sea divine pearl's purifying aura was almost brushing against Qianye Fantian's face, but he never looked at the artifact for even a second. Seeing the flames of greed burning brightly in Nan Wansheng's eyes, he knew that his friend would never back down even if he knew that he was being manipulated and used every step of the way. It was because the bait was simply too much for him to resist. Hey. Qianye Fantian suddenly started chuckling. What was a low chuckle eventually turned into mad laughter. H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A? Golden light burst out of his eyes as he summoned his Brahma monarch divine power. It was like 10,000 cracks of thunder. It was the power of the strongest God Emperor of the Eastern divine region. Nan Wansheng's hair and clothes were flapping wildly from the pressure, but he himself was unmoved in the slightest. The Sea Kings and the Sea Gods behind him didn't fare so well, however. The eruption of power had shocked them and pushed them back. My lord, the Brahma Kings shouted in unison. His divine power wasn't the only thing that had erupted. Ignoring the poison ravaging his entire body like angry devils, Qianye Fantian stared at Nan Wansheng with eyes as dark as the abyss and declared, The Brahma monarch god realm may perish to the sky poison, but I have no qualms about this. He beat me fair and square, so that's that. If you are going to try to rob us while we're down, heh. All of his friendliness was replaced with a savage look that not even Nan Wansheng had ever seen in his life. I promise to spill your blood across this land even if the price is my own life. In your state. Nan Wansheng's own savagery was lit on fire as he put away the Southern Sea divine pearl and summoned his own power. The strongest God Emperor of the Eastern divine region and the strongest God Emperor of the Southern divine region clashed atop the Brahma monarch capital just like that, splitting the sky itself in half. Qianye Fantian was clearly being suppressed due to the corruption of the sky poison, but he didn't back even a step away from Nan Wansheng. The green light in his eyes was bright, and his flesh was writhing unnaturally like there were earthworms beneath them, but he didn't show any pain on his face at all. My lord, the Brahma Kings couldn't help but be shocked. Excluding the traitor Qianye Ying'er, all 13 Brahma kings of the Brahma monarch god realm were present. However, they were all suffering from the heaven-wounding thought severing poison, and the southern sea god emperor was accompanied by 6 sea gods and 2 sea kings. This was supposed to be their home ground, and yet the southern sea realm was the one that had the absolute advantage. If we are going to die anyway, then why go with our backs bent and our knees on the ground? The first Brahma king sighed before wiping his sorrow away. Just like Qianye Fantian, he released all of his power for the battle. We are the Brahma kings. It is our duty to carry out the will of our Lord. All the Brahma kings stopped holding themselves back and charged toward the southern sea realm's forces. The sky poison was eating them alive, but they were past caring at this point. On the ground, the elders and the divine envoys all straightened their backs as well. The sky poison was incurable. If they were going to die anyway, then they were going to die with dignity at the very least. Kill! They weren't trying to scare the southern sea realm's forces away anymore, so the order wasn't to repel the enemies or defend their realm. It was to turn their enemies into cold, lifeless corpses. The fate of the Brahma monarch realm was sealed from the moment the word was spoken. They couldn't win, because they were hastening their own deaths just by using their own power. So they would kill, yes, they would kill their enemies with everything they had. They couldn't afford to drag out this battle. All they could do was use all their trump cards and destroy their enemies in the shortest amount of time possible. They were all going to fall into hell anyway, so they might as well drag someone down with them. Qianye Fantian swayed and attacked the southern sea god emperor with a blast of energy. At the same time, the Brahma kings, sea gods and sea kings all burst into action. Spatial fragments fell like a downpour as the explosions ripped apart the fabric of space in an instant. At least dozens of dimensional whirlpools had appeared right above the capital city. Nan Wansheng's fingers glowed with golden energy as he stopped Qianye Fantian's power with ease. Despite standing in the middle of a spatial storm, his smile only grew more savage than before. Is the fish trying to break the net? You pitiful, dying worms think you have the strength to take us down with you. Bang. A simple flick of his fingers was all it took to send Qianye Fantian flying far, far away. He laughed disdainfully at the god emperor for a moment before charging toward the tower on the other side of the capital city. He was here to grab the artifact of eternal life for himself, not to massacre the Brahma monarch god realm. Qianye Fantian tried to catch up to Nan Wansheng, but a mouthful of red blood mixed with terrifying green burst out of his throat first before he could do anything. Even so, he chased after the southern sea god emperor immediately after the involuntary reaction. The heaven-wounding thought-severing poison wasn't just killing the Brahma kings and the Brahma elders, it also massively impeded the flow of their profound energy. As a result, the Brahma monarch realm was at a complete disadvantage despite their superior numbers. Boom! The Western Sea Hell King easily knocked away 2 Brahma kings who were attempting to tackle him. He laughed contemptuously at their chaotic auras and painful faces before saying, "You could have gone down with dignity, but no, you just have to humiliate yourselves, don't you?" Heh! The 8th Brahma king and the 13th Brahma king suddenly chuckled in unison. At the same time, an unusual golden light flashed across both their trembling eyes. "Brothers," the 8th Brahma king said in a soul voice only the Brahma kings could hear. "We'll see you all later." The 8th Brahma king and the 13th Brahma king let out a roar and charged toward the Western Hell Sea king. There are 2 great threats to watch out for in the Brahma monarch god realm. The first one is Qianye Fantian, and the second one is a Brahma king with a death wish. This was something Qianye Ying'er told Xianxia and Kai Weiao while they were still preparing to invade the eastern divine region. A cultivator of the Brahma monarch inheritance is powerful both in terms of their power and their soul. Not only could they cultivate an independent Brahma soul, they could also execute a suicidal technique called Brahma soul ashes through their Brahma soul energy. Therefore, it is never a good idea to attack the Brahma monarch god realm by force. Instead, we should drive them into a corner and find a suitable tool to bear the brunt of that technique for us. The good news is, we have both the tool and the bait in our possession. Qianye Ying'er clearly knew who to use and what to use already when she spoke of her plan. The 2 most difficult parts of this plan are the part where we drive the Brahma monarch realm into a corner, and the part where we minimize the tool's vigilance and maximize his desires. Don't worry. The Brahma Soul Ashes is the Brahma King's ultimate trump card, and since no one has ever been able to drive the Brahma Monarch God realm into a corner, it has never been used, meaning that neither the Dragon God realm nor the Southern Sea realm are aware of its existence. When the 8th Brahma King and the 13th Brahma King flew toward the Western Hell Sea King, the rest of the Brahma Kings had spun around to keep the latter in place with all of their power. They didn't defend themselves even when the sea gods seized the opening to blow holes in their bodies. The combined pressure of 10 Brahma Kings was too much even for the Western Hell Sea King was able to break free immediately. An instant was all the 8th Brahma King needed to wrap his arms around the Sea King's waist, and the 13th Brahma King to grab his right leg. Boom! The Western Hell Sea King sneered and detonated his power. The zero-distance explosion broke the 2 Brahma Kings' arm and chest bones, and blood sprayed out of their lips, but they never let go of the Western Hell Sea King. At the same time, golden scars started appearing all across their bodies, and golden light flooded their eyes. Alarm bells rang inside the Western Hell Sea King's head as a terrible chill shot up his spine. He blurted, "Wah, what are you doing?" Sensing that something unusual was happening, the Southern Hell Sea King abruptly changed targets and attacked the 8th Brahma King. Boom! The blast of energy caused the 8th Brahma King's back to cave inward, but the golden scars were still spreading at an unbelievable rate. At the same time, the Southern Hell Sea King's soul started screaming at him to escape as far away as possible from the trio. Brahma, soul, ashes! The 2 Brahma Kings shouted the final words of their lives before a golden light engulfed both of them and exploded without warning. Boom! The golden explosion looked like a sun in the sky. It was no power the 2 Brahma Kings should be able to unleash even if they were twice as strong as they were. And it was accompanied by the terrible screams of the Western Sea Hell King. Nan Wansheng looked back at his injured subordinate in shock, but he only flew faster toward the tower where his object of desire lay. The 8th Brahma King and the 13th Brahma King's bodies had turned into golden dust during the explosion. The Western Hell Sea King was sent flying like a broken blood bag. His upper torso looked like broken porcelain, and his right leg was completely missing. To say that he was badly mutilated would be an understatement. He was one of the 4 great Sea Kings. Somehow, he was able to survive the self-destruction of 2 Brahma Kings. The terrifying golden explosion had scared away the Southern Hell Sea King and the 6 Sea Gods, but not the 1st Brahma King and the 2nd Brahma King. They charged the Western Hell Sea King and launched their full power at the dying Western Hell Sea King. 2 more explosions followed before the golden explosion had faded completely. This time, the Western Hell Sea King shattered into bloody pieces of flesh and bones before he could even let out a scream. The Southern Sea God Emperor looked back again with deep shock in his eyes. The battle had only just begun, but multiple lives were lost already. The Brahma Monarch God realm was dying as they fought, so the Southern Sea forces thought that they could step all over them and more. They never thought that they would lose the Western Hell Sea King in just a couple of breaths' time. The 4 Sea Kings were all peak level 10 divine masters. They were second only to the God Emperors, not to mention that they served the Southern Sea God realm, the strongest realm of the Southern Divine region. And he was gone just like that, just like that. The Southern Hell Sea King's pupils had shrunk into needles. The 6 Sea Gods' faces were twitching violently. Anyone could detonate their own profound veins. In fact, it very often happened to profound practitioners who were driven into a corner. To detonate one's profound veins was to detonate all of the power inside one's profound veins. Naturally, it was a slow process. That was why few people used it as a killing technique, even though they were on the verge of death. The enemy would almost always be able to escape to a safe range before one could detonate their profound veins. However, the 2 Brahma Kings had self-destructed much quicker than normal, and the resulting explosion was so terrible that even a Sea King was almost killed outright. The Western Hell Sea King's executioners, the 1st Brahma King and the 2nd Brahma King, didn't look too good despite their success. Blood was flowing down their lips and their faces were scrunched up in pain. They were killing themselves every time they attacked at full force. But they were laughing. They were laughing in sorrow and grim determination. "This is the Brahma Soul Ashes," Qianye Ying'er said behind the Southern Sea Hell King. "It is a technique that allows a Brahma King to detonate their divine power through the Brahma Soul immediately. You must be careful." The Southern Hell Sea King clenched his fists and shivered all over. The death of the Western Hell Sea King was sure to ripple across the entire Southern Divine region. It was an unimaginable loss to the Southern Sea God realm. Brahma Soul Ashes. Who could have imagined that the Brahma monarch realm would possess a suicidal technique this terrifying? Who would have thought that two dying level 9 divine masters would be able to take out a peak level 10 divine master? No one is weak in the Brahma monarch. The first Brahma king said the words every denizen in the eastern divine region would recognize. This is a matter of pride and belief. For Brahma monarch's well-being and future, we can concede, submit, and endure anything, but we will never allow anyone to step on our final pride. As for him, the first Brahma king pointed at Qianye Ying'er. He is not a Brahma king, he is just a dog. No one noticed that an eerie, dark light was flashing chaotically inside the deepest part of Qianye Ying'er's pupils. Heh! The Southern Hell Sea King slowly raised his head and stared at his enemies. His earlier disdain had turned into deep irritation and killing intent. The Brahma monarch god realm truly deserves its reputation. We admit that we underestimated you. But you've also quickened your own deaths. He pushed forward and caused space itself to collapse. The first Brahma king and the second Brahma king were immediately thrown backward as their chests exploded in a shower of blood. The 6 sea gods renewed their assault after the Southern Hell Sea King charged toward the first Brahma king and the second Brahma king. The situation immediately grew several times worse for the despairing Brahma kings. The Southern Sea God Emperor was shocked beyond words when he sensed the Western Hell Sea King's death, but he only hesitated for a moment before charging toward his destination at top speed. Xianxia was standing above the tower and watching everything. Right now, he was staring at Qianye Fantian even though Nan Wansheng was coming his way. The tower was completely empty because the guards had already died to the heaven-wounding thoughts severing poisons several days ago. Gu Zhu was nowhere to be seen either. The Southern Sea God Emperor immediately summoned the spirit-removing devil pick and pounded away at the ceiling formations around the tower. The profound formations shattered in a series of flashes and loud noises. A couple of breaths later, Qianye Fantian finally caught up to Nan Wansheng, but he collapsed to his knees and threw up a mouthful of poisoned blood the second he hit the ground. He didn't dare to nurse his wounds. He glared at the Southern Sea God Emperor and moved his right hand to his chest. Qianye narrowed his eyes and crouched a little, ready to burst into action at a moment's notice. There are 2 old monsters hidden at the secret tower to the northwest of Brahma monarch capital. That was what Qianye Ying'er said to him back then. They are called Qianye Wugu and Qianye Bingzhu. They are my grandfather and my great-grandfather, HMPH. The people in the god realm still remember their names, but I'm sure that no one knows that they're still alive in this world. Even here in the Brahma monarch god realm, there are only 5 people, including myself, who know about this. They paid a special price and extended their lifespans using the primordial seal of life and death. After that, they secluded themselves next to the artifact both to stay alive and to find a way to enter the realm beyond Divine Master. All their senses are sealed when they are in secluded cultivation, and I'm sure that Qianye Fantian will summon them at the last moment. But he can only do that using the Brahma Soul Bell. This was the biggest secret of the Brahma monarch realm, the fact that their ancestors were still alive. When Qianye Ying'er was going to sacrifice herself to save Qianye Fantian, she had specifically ordered Gu Zhu to seal away this part of her memories to prevent it from being known to Qianye and Xia Qingyu. Qianye Fantian had also asked Gu Zhu about this, although the latter had lied and told him that the memories were removed, not sealed. As a result, Qianye was able to unravel the seal in Qianye Ying'er's soul sea with ease using her Devil Emperor soul. Naturally, she quickly recalled all her memories regarding the ancestors and the primordial seal of life and death. That's right, just like the Yama realm and the eternal heaven realm, the Brahma monarch god realm also enjoyed the protection of their ancestors. Although they weren't nearly as old as the 3 Yama ancestors, the fact that they managed to survive this long would shock every living being in the world. In the primordial era, the primordial seal of life and death was inferior only to the heaven-punishing ancestral sword and the evil infant wheel of myriad tribulations. It was the 3rd greatest heavenly profound treasure in the world, and it granted its user eternal life. After the Brahma monarch god realm obtained the primordial seal of life and death, they spent countless time researching ways to use it. Finally, they found a way to trigger it partially during Qianye Wugu's generation. Qianye watched Qianye Fantian's palm closely. The second he took out the Brahma soul bell, he would show himself and snatch the artifact. Qianye Fantian suddenly paused his movements as if he just recalled something. Instead of taking out the Brahma soul bell, He drew something in midair and created an isolation barrier around himself. Only then did he take out the Brahma soul bell and ring it, covering the area with golden light. His plan foiled, Qianye had no choice but to withdraw in silence. Bang! There was another explosion, and a small half of the ceiling formations covering the tower were completely destroyed. It was at this moment the sound of the bell entered the tower. Rumble. The light of all the ceiling formations vanished at once, and the center of the tower suddenly crumbled inward. Then, a wizened old man flew out from it and charged straight toward Nan Wansheng. It was none other than Gu Zhu. Heh, Nan Wansheng attacked as he uttered darkly. "You again, you damn old man?" His expression suddenly changed drastically. His vision flashed white for an instant as one no. Two gigantic powers dropped from the sky and landed to his right and left. Boom! A dimensional crack about 500 kilometers long shattered the sound barrier like none other and knocked Nan Wansheng away hard. The God Emperor skidded across the ground for dozens of kilometers before he finally came to a stop. His skin was cracked slightly, and blood was flowing down his arms. Two pale figures appeared side by side in front of him as he lowered his arms. They were two old men dressed in simple white robes. Their hair was completely white, and they looked like time travelers who had crossed time and space itself to arrive in the present world. They looked like they had seen everything there was to be seen in the world. The Southern Sea God Emperor slowly lowered his painful arms and glared at them. He thought that Qianye Fantian was the only profound practitioner in the entire Brahma monarch god realm who was his equal. However, the two old men blocking his way were just as strong as he was. Moreover, there was an unnatural weight and age to their auras. What was going on here? Since when did the Brahma monarch god realm have two such powers? His pupils suddenly shrank in realization as a deep, frightful growl leaked out of his throat. Qianye Bingzhu and Qianye Wugu. Their faces and auras struck a deep chord with the memories he inherited from the god emperors before him. They were supposed to be dead a long time ago. In the sky, Qianye was also watching the two old men. So far, everything Qianye Ying'er said had turned out to be true. Qianye Wugu and Qianye Bingzhu were the Brahma monarch god emperors from 2 generations ago. Nan Wansheng's shock was quickly replaced by overwhelming madness as he stared at the two old men who should have been dead a long time ago. "It's all true, it's all true," Nan Wansheng shouted excitedly. "Not only do you possess the artifact of eternal life, you actually found a workable method to use it. If the Brahma monarch realm found a way to use it, then there is no reason the Southern Sea realm can't do the same. Heh heh ha 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 ha." He laughed madly as golden light erupted from his eyes. He spread his arms wide and summoned the shadow of a golden tower behind him. Just like the profound practitioners of the Brahma monarch realm, their profound auras were gold in color at their peak. The golden tower behind him started growing taller and taller until it was 30,000 meters in height. The old man to his right looked unperturbed despite the fact that the entire Brahma monarch capital was engulfed in a poisonous aura. He stared at Nan Wansheng and said, "It looks like the juniors of the Southern Sea realm keep getting better with every generation. This Southern Hell Tower is well built. It is already as good as the old man of our time." The other old man sighed. Their voices alone put great pressure on Nan Wansheng's shoulders, not to mention that Gu Zhu was still lurking around the corner. That old man wasn't to be underestimated either, but he could not give up knowing that his opponents were long dead, and the artifact of life was right in front of him. Moreover, this might be his one and only shot at eternal life. He wouldn't stop even if he had to exhaust all of the Southern Hell Tower's power to achieve his goal. Grinning madly, he was about to take a step forward when something caused him to look behind him in shock on the other side of the battlefield. The poisoned Brahma kings were no match for the enraged Southern Hell Sea King and the 6 sea gods at all. Despite throwing all caution to the wind and fighting with all their might, they still took massive damage in just a short time. Rumble. The Southern Hell Sea King easily shattered the Brahma God Great Formation created by the first Brahma King and the second Brahma King in one palm strike. Then he summoned 2 illusory towers of his own and sent them flying toward his opponents. The resulting explosion dug giant holes in the Brahma King's chests and sent them flying again. Although the Sea King was powerful, the 2 strongest Brahma Kings of the Brahma monarch realm shouldn't have lost so quickly. The heaven-wounding thought-severing poison was the biggest reason behind their weakened power and bodies. They were losing life force madly with every passing breath. Bang! The 2 Brahma Kings hit the ground like meteors. Around them, the rest of the Brahma kings were crawling on the ground and injured grievously as well. The Brahma kings exchanged glances with each other. They saw defeat and fatal determination in everyone's eyes. The Southern Hell Sea King appeared above them and uttered in a ghastly tone, "The opportunity to execute this many Brahma kings by our own hands should have been pleasurable. But none of you think that you'll get to die easily after you killed the Western Hell Sea King, right?" After what happened to the Western Hell Sea King, the Southern Hell Sea King had been fighting carefully despite his ferocity. He never gave them a chance to get close to him at all. He opened his palm and summoned a small, profound formation on each finger. "Scream in pain before you die. Let this be the Western Hell Sea King's parting gift." It was at this moment two impossible auras appeared in the distance. Everyone looked in that direction in shock. "Ancestor!" the first Brahma King shouted excitedly. He was the only Brahma King who knew of the secret. "It's the ancestors!" "What?" the Southern Hell Sea King exclaimed in shock. While the Southern Hell Sea King was distracted by the emergence of the two Brahma monarch ancestors, Qianye Ying'er, the traitor who had been fighting his own comrades all this time, suddenly clung onto his back and kept him immobilized. At the same time, golden cracks started spreading all across his body. "You!" the Southern Hell Sea King looked back in shock. Before he could say anything else, another two figures had clung on to him. On the verge of death, the first Brahma King and second Brahma King actually surpassed their limits and moved faster than they ever had in their lives. The second they touched the Southern Hell Sea King's body, they immediately triggered their Brahma souls to detonate all the divine power inside their bodies. "Big brother, Wule!" all of the Brahma Kings shouted in sorrow, but there was only one outcome since their bodies had started glowing. Boom! Boom! The Southern Hell Sea King tried to knock the three Brahma Kings away from him with all his might, but not one of them loosened their grip at all. The golden cracks covering their bodies looked like a golden web that kept the Southern Hell Sea King completely locked tight. You! The ferocity in the Southern Hell Sea King's eyes turned into fear. The memory of the Western Hell Sea King's death replayed itself in its mind. "A parting gift, huh? That's a good idea." By now, the first Brahma King had already been engulfed by the golden light completely. "We will take you as our parting gift. Wait! Boom! This time it was three Brahma Kings using Brahma soul ashes together, not to mention that two of them were the strongest of them all. The resulting explosion was hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Unlike the Western Hell Sea King, the Southern Hell Sea King didn't get a chance to survive the explosion. He was blasted to pieces. Even the sea gods who tried to save the Southern Hell Sea King were caught up in the blast and suffered varying degrees of injuries. On the ground, the Brahma Kings ignored the wounds and poison eating away at their lives and stared blankly at the final light of their comrades. The Brahma Kings of the Brahma monarch realm were the greatest group of profound practitioners in the Eastern divine region bar none. They had always carried out their beliefs faithfully, and they had always believed that their glory days would last into eternity. Everything had changed less than a week ago. Today, 5 Brahma Kings were gone just like that. In the distance, Xianxia stared at the explosion and muttered to himself, "Qianye Ying'er was right. Had we tried to take over the Brahma monarch realm by force, we would have suffered huge losses." The Southern Sea God Emperor's eyes widened as he stared at the seemingly endless expanse of golden light and the vanishing aura of the Southern Hell Sea King. Qianye Wugu and Qianye Bingzhu suddenly attacked in unison. Their power combined as one to form a gigantic blast of golden energy. Nan Wansheng immediately turned around and pushed the 30,000-meter tall tower behind him forward. Buzz, a dimensional crack, slowly appeared at the point of impact as a dull noise reverberated throughout the entire Brahma monarch capital. The shadow of the Southern Hell Tower shook violently before crumbling into nothingness. Meanwhile, Nan Wansheng had already flown tens of kilometers away while shouting at the top of his lungs, "Retreat!" The death of the first Sea King stunned him, but also deepened his madness. But the death of the second Sea King finally scared him enough to wake him from his stupor. The Brahma monarch god realm was on the verge of complete destruction. It should have taken no effort at all to conquer it. And yet somehow, they had managed to trade 2 Sea Kings with the dying power of 5 Brahma Kings. They had killed half of his strongest subordinates in a nightmarishly short amount of time. It would have pained him deeply to lose 2 sea gods, much less 2 of the 4 strongest Sea Kings of his realm. The artifact of eternal life was right in front of him. But the 2 Brahma monarch ancestors were even closer. If he didn't turn back now, if he insisted on pitting his men against the two Brahma monarch ancestors and the remaining Brahma kings, he might even lose the 6 sea gods. He was fully aware that he was manipulated when he first came to the eastern divine region, but he never imagined that he would lose 2 sea kings at the end of his journey. Neither Qianye Wugu nor Qianye Bingzhu tried to give chase. After they confirmed that the southern sea god emperor and the 6 sea gods had fully escaped, they immediately sat down on the ground and closed their eyes. Then, they became as quiet as statues. Qianye Fantian climbed to his feet and stared at Qianye Wugu and Qianye Bingzhu for a moment. Then his expression changed slightly. "Royal father, grandfather, they are poisoned as well, cough, cough." Gu Zhu could no longer hide the pain on his face. They had locked the poison inside their innards to prevent the southern sea god emperor from noticing. They had in fact reached their limit with that previous attack. Had they allowed the poisonous aura to leak out of their system, Nan Wansheng wouldn't have retreated no matter what. Qianye Fantian trembled as he muttered in the daze, "To think that the sky-poisoned pearl is this terrifying." Not only was the tower covered in countless sealing formations, Qianye Wugu and Qianye Bingzhu had been bathing in the divine aura of the artifact of eternal life long before the poisoning began, and yet they still couldn't escape the disaster. To think that the Brahma monarch god realm, one of the highest realms in all of God realm, would be humbled to this extent by the sky-poisoned pearl. "My lord!" The rest of the Brahma kings dragged their tired bodies to their god emperor and their ancestors. The 1st, 2nd, 8th, 10th, and 13th Brahma kings were dead, and the remaining 9 were seriously injured as well. They knelt in front of Qianye Wugu and Qianye Bingzhu and greeted their ancestors excitedly. "Greetings, my former king. Greetings, my ancestor." Neither ancestor gave them a reply. "Wu Wule Zonglan Bailey Xianxia, are they all gone?" Qianye Fantian asked while shutting his eyes. His voice was flat and emotionless. "Yes, they are." The 3rd Brahma king asked softly. "It is thanks to Xianxia we were able to kill the Southern Hell Sea King, but what is the meaning behind his actions? Why did he betray us in the beginning only to give his life for us at the end? There is only one answer to Xianxia's unnatural behavior." Qianye Fantian recalled the time Qianye Xianxia went to Snow Song Realm and said, "He most likely ran into Yan Xianxia and the Devil Queen when he was returning from the Snow Song Realm. Could it be?" All the Brahma kings came to realization at once. "His soul was stolen by the Devil Queen," Qianye Fantian said before staring at the sky. The mastermind had lured the southern sea god emperor to the eastern divine region, driven the Brahma monarch realm to a dead end using the sky poison, used a soul-stolen Xianxia to fan Nan Wansheng's flames of greed to their limits, then betray them and the southern sea forces afterward. As a result, both Brahma monarch and southern sea had suffered massive damage. Knowing that, the mastermind had to be watching this exciting show from somewhere. Qianye Fantian did not bother to point that out. He simply closed his eyes again and let out a sigh. It no longer mattered if Qianye Xianxia was controlled by the Devil Queen. The battle had caused the sky poison in the Brahma kings' bodies to spiral completely out of control, and even now their flesh and their life force were being consumed at a ridiculous rate. The 3rd Brahma king asked sorrowfully, "My lord, are we going to vanish into history just like this?" "No," Qianye Fantian surprised everyone. "There is one last way." His words lit a flame of hope in the eyes of every Brahma king. "Prepare a ship." There was only calm in Qianye Fantian's eyes when he opened them again. "Now that I think of it, it has been a long time since I saw Ying'er." The Brahma kings wore complicated expressions on their faces when they heard Qianye Fantian's comment. Back then, Qianye Fantian had valued Qianye Ying'er like no other. He had afforded every bit of indulgence and tenderness he had, but equally so, he had ruthlessly abandoned her when push came to shove. It was his modus operandi. It was why Qianye Ying'er became the way she did in the first place, and why they could easily imagine her hating him to the bone. For the past few years, they had gathered from bits and pieces of information that Qianye Ying'er had been working together with Xianxia. Not only was she forced to escape to the northern divine region, she was forced to attach herself to the man she hated the most, who knew exactly how much hatred and killing intent she harbored for him right now. Unlike Xianxia's all-encompassing hatred, Qianye Ying'er's was focused almost solely on Qianye Fantian. Killing Qianye Fantian had to be the biggest reason she returned to the eastern divine region with Xianxia. "My lord, you can't," the 3rd Brahma king said while shaking his head. The rest of the Brahma kings were wearing the same expression, but they couldn't say anything. After all, it had been Qianye Fantian's own choice to abandon Qianye Ying'er. He. Qianye Fantian chuckled before saying softly, "The blood of the Brahma monarch runs in her veins. That'll never change for as long as she lives." Some distance away, Qianye turned away indifferently and took to the sky. When Qianye returned to the eternal heaven realm, the first person he saw was Qianye, shooting him a charming, meaningful smile. "It looks like everything is going smoothly." Qianye smiled. "Not only did we force out the 2 Brahma monarch ancestors, the 5 dead Brahma kings even managed to break 2 of the southern sea realm's arms. This is truly a pleasant surprise. That being said, the Brahma monarch realm definitely deserves its title as the strongest king realm of the eastern divine region. Without the sky poison pearl, it would have taken considerable effort to conquer it in a short time. Has no higher realm king shown up yet?" Qianye scanned the area with his consciousness before asking. "No, they're probably all waiting for someone to step up first and hoping that the Brahma monarch realm will create a miracle," Qianye replied before pursing her lips. "It doesn't matter, though. They'll be changing their minds very soon, won't they?" Qianye fell silent for a moment before asking a strange question suddenly. "Say, do you really think she'll kill Qianye Fantian if he lets her?" He was of course referring to Qianye Ying'er when he said she. "What is that supposed to mean?" Qianye Ying'er's icy voice suddenly came from behind him. She walked up to him and stared at him closely. "My mother's grievance and my own grievance. The very reason I clung to life, escaped to the northern divine region, submitted to you, and became a devil person was to kill Qianye Fantian. You knew all this, so why are you asking such a funny question?" Qianye Ying'er stopped beside him before her tone grew even lower. "You may annihilate the Brahma monarch god realm however you like, but that old dog Qianye Fantian must be alive to be killed by my own hands. That is what you promised me back then. You're not going to break your promise now, are you?" Qianye shot her a glance and replied, "You will get your wish very soon." "Is that so?" Qianye Ying'er narrowed her eyes slightly as something dark darted behind her golden pupils. "Very good. Don't forget, Qianye Fantian must be killed by my own hands. I'll kill anyone who takes that right away from me." Qianye. It was at this moment Fendayaki appeared and bowed before Qianye and Qianye. "Your Magnificence, Your Majesty, we've detected the Brahma monarch god realm's primary warship. However, they're traveling slowly for some reason. It's almost as if they want us to notice them. They'll probably reach us in another hour." Qianye Ying'er abruptly looked at Fendayaki with renewed killing intent. "There is no need to stop them." Qianye's eyebrows sank as he smiled. "Open the barrier and let them in when they arrive." "Yes, Your Magnificence." Fendayaki was surprised, but he left to carry out his order without any question. An hour later, the Eternal Heaven Realm's barrier slowly opened to admit the gigantic Brahma Heaven warship. However, there was none of the imperialistic pressure one came to expect from the strongest profound warship of the eastern divine region. Instead, there was only a thick aura of death. Qianye Fantian took the lead and jumped down from the warship before anyone. Behind him were the 9 Brahma kings, and after them the surviving 63 Brahma monarch elders. It was all that was left of them. In other words, the core strength of the entire Brahma monarch god realm except the 2 ancestors and Gu Zhu was here. A core this deadly should strike fear and meekness in anyone who saw them. But even their leader, Qianye Fantian, didn't look mighty in the slightest. His weakness and exhaustion were clear for everyone to see. The Moon Eaters and the Burning Moon divine envoys quickly surrounded them. Their auras alone were enough to stifle the Brahma kings and the Brahma monarch elders' breaths. The fight against the southern sea forces was very short, but it also caused the heavenly wounding thought severing poison to seep deep into their internal organs and profound veins. If it wasn't bad enough before, the poison was now completely unstoppable. It had only been a couple of hours since the southern sea forces left, and the core strength of Brahma monarch realm traveled to eternal heaven god realm, but it would not be surprising if some of them were to drop dead this very moment. They couldn't even make themselves look slightly less pitiable, much less mount any resistance at all. "Long time no see, Brahma monarch god emperor." Qianye slowly walked over and stared at Qianye Fantian. "It looks like you aren't doing too well, though." This was the first time Qianye Fantian saw Qianye at close range since 4 years ago. Today, the man's cultivation, aura, gaze, and appearance were almost completely different from what he remembered. If he wasn't seeing Qianye with his own eyes, he would probably never believe that a person could change this drastically in such a short time. "Qianye," Qianye Fantian straightened his back and said slowly, I thought that you were a threat that must be eliminated since the day I saw you, and you have not disappointed me. I am truly impressed by the things you've achieved in just 4 short years. Suddenly, the God Emperor wobbled on his feet. Greenish blood started bleeding slowly out of his orifices. Qianye Fantian. Qianye Ying'er had lost control of her killing intent the moment she set eyes on her father. It was to the point where every strand of her hair was swinging wildly, and the divine oracle wrapped around her waist was ringing aggressively. There was a piercing sonic boom as Qianye Ying'er charged toward Qianye Fantian and attempted to kill him where he stood. Xianxia caught her wrist calmly and forcefully before saying, he wasn't planning to leave this place alive from the beginning. Wouldn't it be a shame to kill him this easily after all those years of hatred and hard work? Qianye Ying'er's wrist was shaking uncontrollably. It was a miracle her teeth hadn't shattered under the pressure she was putting on them. Xianxia would never forget the day Qianye Ying'er had dropped to her knees and stared at him with eyes full of darkness and hatred. At the time, after losing her power and escaping to the northern divine region, killing Qianye Fantian was the only reason she still clung to life. Qianye Fantian, you are wise to choose this place as your grave. I'll give you that. Xianxia released Qianye Ying'er's wrist and said, however, I wasn't expecting you to be the kind of guy who would bury your Brahma kings and your elders with you. Tusk, a disdainful smile broke across his lips. Do you have any last words to say before you go? Qianye Fantian replied, history is written by the victors. I was the one who failed to eliminate you back then, so my defeat was just the natural outcome. He pressed a hand to his chest and said seriously, the reason I came here today is to make a deal with you. A deal? Ha 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 ha. Xianxia barked out a laugh before sneering. Please don't tell me you're dreaming that I would cure you of your affliction. Heh heh. Qianye Fantian chuckled himself. I would be thoroughly disappointed if you had allowed me to live. Oh, Xianxia's expression turned curious. Qianye Fantian slowly opened his palm to reveal a golden object. It was the lifeline of the Brahma monarch realm, the Brahma soul bell. It let out a tiny chime when it was revealed, but it was enough to clear the Brahma kings and the Brahma elders' mind and drew their attention toward it. This bell was literally the symbol of their highest faith. Children of Brahma monarch, heed my order. Qianye Fantian's amiable voice grew stern. The bearer of the Brahma monarch's bloodline and the Brahma soul bell is the unquestionable monarch of the Brahma monarch realm. His body was shaking from the poison, but his words hit the heart like a hammer. I, Qianye Fantian, the 31st Brahma Heaven God Emperor of the Brahma Monarch realm, hereby pass down my title and the Brahma Soul Bell to my successor, Qianye Ying'er. From here on, Qianye Ying'er is the 32nd Brahma Heaven God Emperor of the Brahma Monarch realm. 1. My lord. The Brahma kings and Brahma elders stared at him in shock. They had a feeling that something like this would happen from the moment Qianye Fantian produced the Brahma Soul Bell. Was this the last way he spoke of before they came here? Oh, Qianye looked thoughtful as she glanced back and forth between Qianye Fantian and Qianye Ying'er. Xianxia didn't comment on Qianye Fantian's surprising action, but Qianye Ying'er started walking toward the latter. The divine oracle was still flashing a little aggressively. Ying'er, my name is Qianye. Qianye Ying'er stopped in front of Qianye Fantian and stared at him coldly. Have you already forgotten? The naive woman you called Qianye Ying'er was killed by your own 2 hands a long time ago. Qianye Fantian only smiled despite the utter lack of warmth in his eyes. He raised his hand shakily and said, take the Brahma Soul Bell, and you are the Brahma Heaven God Emperor. Qianye Ying'er snatched it from his hand without changing her expression at all. Just like that, the lifeline of the entire Brahma Monarch God realm was now in her hands. She narrowed her eyes as the light of the Brahma Soul Bell entered her eyes. Once upon a time, the Brahma Soul Bell was the object of her greatest desire. One of her greatest goals was to become a Brahma Heaven God Emperor that was as great as Qianye Fantian, if not better. But not only did she return the Brahma Soul Bell to Qianye Fantian the first time it was given to her, she had made the biggest sacrifice of her life to save his. Today, all the Brahma Soul Bell did was awaken that terrible humiliation and hatred she felt on that day. There was none of the pride and satisfaction she should feel for being rewarded for her hard work. Gripping the Brahma Soul Bell firmly in one hand, she stabbed Qianye Fantian with the divine oracle mercilessly and without any hesitation with the other hand. My lord! Cries of sorrow broke out as Qianye Fantian collapsed to his knees and stared at the golden light that pierced his chest. Qianye Fantian, Qianye Ying'er said with eyes as cold as the abyss. If I felt even a shred of pity toward you just because you gave me the Brahma soul bell, I wouldn't be able to face the gift you gave me back then or my mother. Shred. She swung her weapon violently to the side, and Qianye Fantian was tossed far away like a bleeding rag doll. The Brahma kings hurriedly circulated their profound energy and moved toward their god emperor. The bleeding Qianye Fantian only raised his head and laughed happily. Well done, well done. This is how my daughter should behave, how the Brahma heaven god emperor should act. Ha 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 ha. 1. And the 3 Brahma gods are Qianye Washeng, Qianye Wubei, and Qianye Wui. O Macron Macron O. Qianye Fantian was Qianye Ying'er's biological father, but she had attacked him ruthlessly. The Moon Eaters in the area were quite shocked because they didn't know the full story behind their grievances. Several Brahma kings threw all caution to the wind and rushed to Qianye Fantian's aid. The 4th Brahma king produced a white spirit pellet and tried to feed it to Qianye Fantian. My lord, quick! Qianye Fantian had pushed his hand away immediately. By now, the poison had seeped so deep that even the blood running out of his body was changing colors. But instead of suppressing it, he shouted at his Brahma kings, My lord, did you go blind or deaf? Ying'er is your lord now, she is the new master of the Brahma monarch realm. Heh! Qianye Ying'er sneered out loud. Her killing intent hadn't subsided or deviated in the slightest despite Qianye Fantian's actions. Qianye Fantian, is this your final struggle? Do you really think you can protect your dogs with such a pathetic and ridiculous method? No, they aren't my dogs any longer. Qianye Fantian slowly rose to his feet. His eyes were growing unfocused, but they still carried the might of a god emperor in them. They are now yours and yours alone. He abruptly spun around and shouted at his Brahma kings. What are you all waiting for? Swear loyalty to your new god emperor already. Or have you forgot even the most basic loyalty and faith we uphold in Brahma monarch realm? Qianye Fantian's words only deepened his daughter's sneer. The divine oracle wrapped around his body like a golden snake and pulled him right next to her feet. And the dark energy surrounding the weapon ate away at his flesh, bit into the bones, and caused showers of blood to burst out of his body. Qianye Fantian didn't let out a single cry of pain. He looked up from beneath Qianye Ying'er's feet and said hoarsely, Ying'er, remember that I am the person you hate the most and want to kill more than anyone else, not them. They are nothing more than loyal servants who carry out their master's orders and responsibility. They are your kin, for you all have the blood of the Brahma monarch flowing in your veins. That will not change now or ever. Is that so? Qianye Ying'er's smile didn't warm up in the slightest. She could still remember Qianye Fantian's cruelty as clear as yesterday, so she would never allow herself to be tempted by his words for even a second. She said coldly and tauntingly, but I'm still going to kill all of them. After all, you're the one who taught me to be absolutely thorough when eliminating my targets. So tell me, what should I do in this situation? Thump. The 3rd Brahma king abruptly dropped to his knees and kowtowed to Qianye Ying'er. He said in a trembling voice, Our lord is Qianye Ying'er, and we swear to serve our lord until death claims us all. Our lord is the new emperor, and our lord is the heavenly mandate. Our vow is eternal as long as we live, and we won't regret it even in death. He had completely realized what Qianye Fantian meant by the final way out at this point. He had meant to preserve the Brahma monarch's bloodline and inheritance at all costs. He didn't want the fate of eternal heaven and moon god to repeat themselves with Brahma monarch. He didn't want Brahma monarch to be wiped from even the annals of history, even if the cost was all of their pride and shame. Behind them, the last 8 Brahma kings and remaining Brahma monarch elders also dropped to their knees and swore the same vow. Unfortunately, all it succeeded in doing was to deepen the ridicule in Qianye Ying'er's eyes. I was hoping that the dying Brahma heaven god emperor would at least show me a top-tier struggle, but all you could put up was a shabby performance. In that case, you might as well save your strength for the wailing you're going to be doing in hell. She swung her arm and detonated her darkness profound energy. Qianye Fantian was instantly sent flying like a bleeding rag doll. The 3rd Brahma king extended his hand and stopped 2 Brahma kings who wanted to help their former lord, but his own body was trembling uncontrollably. Even now, Qianye Fantian didn't circulate his final power to protect himself. His body was almost completely ravaged by darkness profound energy at this point. He lifted his head again on the ground, but this time he was looking at Xianxia. Xianxia, you are the man who has everything, so it'd be a shame if you spend them all on hatred and revenge alone. From the moment you take this step, you are destined to become the ruler of the God realm. You may have successfully defeated the Eastern Divine Region, but you've also brought the Southern Divine Region and the Western Divine Region to full alert. You won't be able to repeat the surprise attack that enabled you to take over the Eastern Divine Region, so you'll definitely need more power to accomplish what you desire. His voice was weak, and he was barely able to raise his hands. However, the words he spoke still caused shivers in everyone's heart. A person is always more useful alive than dead. They will be as loyal to you and Ying'er as they were to me. They will be your dogs, your tools, your stepping stones. It will only be a huge loss to you and Ying'er to kill all of them. A true ruler grows stronger after they conquer their enemies, not the other way around. Qianye. He was going to rise to his feet, but he slipped and fell to a kneeling position. The blood flowing out of all his orifices was growing darker and darker in color. This was Qianye Ying'er's family matter, so no one, Qianye Kaiwao, the Moon Easters, had said a word or interfered from the start. "Are you finished?" Qianye Ying'er spread her fingers and gathered an astonishing amount of black energy at her fingertips. It looked like Qianye Fantian had failed to cause her to waver or react at all. "If you are done spouting your ridiculous last words," Qianye Ying'er pointed at Qianye Fantian, "then die. I only regret that you won't be able to atone for your sins to Mother herself because she is in heaven, and you are destined to stay in hell forever." She dashed toward Qianye Fantian hatefully and prepared to execute him. There was more than enough energy in her palm to annihilate him completely. Boom! There was a terrific sonic boom and shaking of spaces, but it wasn't because Qianye Ying'er's attack had landed on Qianye Fantian and destroyed him. It was because Qianye had appeared and stopped her movement by force. "You!" Qianye Ying'er frowned in complete confusion. Still grabbing Qianye Ying'er's wrist in a death grip, he muttered, "Yanwan, kill him!" Yanwan carried out the order immediately. A black, ghastly hand appeared out of nowhere and penetrated Qianye Fantian's body, crushing his innards and wiping out the last vestiges of his life force. The Brahma Kings felt their hearts clenching in sorrow, but no one moved or said a single word. The light in Qianye Fantian's eyes faded gradually. As it turned out, there were some things in the world that couldn't be transcended even by absolute power and tactics. He was defeated, but he didn't feel like his defeat was undeserved. When his consciousness started departing his body and his body started falling forward uncontrollably, he gave his final look to Qianye. It was a look of faint gratitude. He had never had such an emotion in his life as the ruler of Brahma Monarch realm, because it wasn't an emotion a ruler should have. But in the final moment of his life, he had given it to his most feared enemy, the enemy who ultimately succeeded in driving him to his death. Thump! He slumped in a pool of his own blood and ceased moving. Before his consciousness faded completely, he sent a soul message to Qianye Ying'er. "The Devil Queen commands the witches and the soul-stealing realm. How are you going to beat her? If you're alone, Ying'er." Qianye Ying'er pupils trembled violently for the first time. Qianye Fantian's aura and soul finally finished fading. Perhaps the man himself didn't expect that he, the strongest god-emperor of the Eastern Divine Region, would end his life and his era in such a way. No one moved closer to his corpse. The 9 Brahma Kings and the Brahma Monarch elders dropped to their knees and kowtowed to Qianye Ying'er again to express their loyalty and subservience. Qianye Ying'er slowly clenched her fingers before shaking off Qianye's hand. She stared at his black pupils and questioned coldly, "Why did you stop me from killing him?" Qianye took in her anger calmly and said softly, "You shouldn't live only for the sake of revenge. He doesn't deserve that, and I don't want you to bear the shackles of patricide forever. That is not a burden anyone should bear." Qianye Ying'er. Qianye undoubtedly hated Xing Jukong to the bone. Back then, he could tear the latter into a million pieces and still have more hate to vent. But when he actually had a completely defenseless Xing Jukong in his palm, he discovered that he couldn't muster the strength to kill him. For the past few years, he had kept the former god emperor frozen in the primordial profound arc so that he would suffer every second of his life, but not once did he try to kill him. It was because Xing Jukong was ultimately Jasmine and Qianie's biological father. He just couldn't bring himself to become the murderer of their father. Qianye Ying'er stood dazedly where she was and didn't recover even after a long time had passed. "However, I have broken my promise to you, so as compensation." Qianye shot a glance at the poisoned Brahma Kings and Brahma Monarch elders. "You are free to decide their fates." If this was 15 minutes ago, Qianye Ying'er would have eliminated these people without any hesitation. After all, they were Qianye Fantian's dogs, and they had tried to hunt down her and Xianxia back then. But now she was unable to come to a decision. "My lord," the third Brahma king said softly, "you are the new ruler, and there is no one in the realm who would disobey you. The two ancestors would be glad to have you as well." Qianye Ying'er didn't show any reaction, but Qianye Fantian's voice kept replaying itself in her mind. "They are your kin, for you all have the blood of the Brahma monarch flowing inside your veins. That will not change now or ever. No, they aren't my dogs any longer. They are now yours and yours alone. The Devil Queen commands the witches and the soul-stealing realm. How are you going to beat her? If you're alone, Ying'er, cure them." She finally gave her final verdict. It was the words she would never have allowed herself to say a couple minutes ago. The Brahma monarch and the Brahma kings, especially the 9 Brahma kings, teared up almost at the exact same time after they heard her final verdict, and it wasn't just because they had gotten a new lease in life. "All right." Xianxia shot her one glance and agreed without hesitation. He walked up to the Brahma kings and opened his hand. The greatest purifying light in the world started shining from his left palm. "Ling," Xianxia whispered, "don't worry. Even if we assume that the people who killed your parents are still alive, there is no way the Brahma kings are them. More importantly, they will help us identify the real culprits in no time." Ling answered obediently before releasing the purifying light of the sky-poisoned pearl. It quickly cleansed the 9 Brahma kings and the 63 Brahma monarch elders of the heaven-wounding thought-severing poison. The heaven-wounding thought-severing was an impossible nightmare to the current world, but not to the sky-poisoned pearl. After all, it was created from the sky-poisoned pearl itself, so no other artifact was more suited to cure it. Very soon, the green dots in their pupils faded into nothingness completely. A while later, the sky-poisoned pearl stopped shining. The sky poison had been removed completely. However, it also left the Brahma kings and Brahma monarch elders feeling so weak that they had trouble standing upright. It would surely take them a long time before they recovered completely. But this was paradise compared to the hell they were in before. The third Brahma king bowed to Qianye Ying'er and Xianxia, and everyone else behind him followed his lead. "Thank you, my lord, devil master. Turn on the great projection formation," Qianye ordered a subordinate softly while watching Qianye Ying'er from the side. Her charming smile hadn't changed, but the look in her eyes grew a bit more complicated than normal. This was an outcome she was glad to see, considering how deeply Qianye Ying'er hated Qianye Fantian. Earlier, the woman would have executed every man and woman that were in any way affiliated to him. But now, like it or not, it was impressive that Qianye Fantian was able to accomplish this feat right before he died.